Unless, of course, you're referring to Prom King.
What about NFT Ape King?
You're not that either. How many NFT apes do you own?
0.
Yeah.
The dejected tone of that was so wonderful.
You're gonna shatter his world, man.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and ignoring anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Derry Girls. Derry Girls went 19 episodes over 3 series on Channel 4. Today we're going to be talking about Episode 1, which was called Episode 1, originally airing January 4th, 2018. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, the boys, Joe, Ferg, Gordo, and Nick. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
You know what, Joe? It's doing my notes for this show, I was like, how am I going to talk about this? I don't think this is a sitcom. I just don't think it's a sitcom.
This isn't.
Kelsey and I were talking about this because you said there were no jokes. And off the top of my head, I pulled out like 5 jokes from the first episode.
Oh, is that hilarious ongoing joke of, is that my diary?
But that's a joke. Whether or not you find it funny, the kid having to pee is a joke. The
you guys are being like
the...
hypercritical of this show for some reason.
Yeah, like they're jokes.
Oh, I don't know, because that's our job.
Well, I mean, in the wrong ways.
Yeah, being hypercritical is one thing, but you're just picking at things.
Jay classically can't get behind anything that's not American.
That's not true.
Yes, but I love all foreign shows, and I hate this too, so it's not a Jay thing.
No, it's not even that I hate the show. I don't think it's a sitcom, though.
I don't think it's a sitcom either. I think
the fans are going to back me on this one. A, is this a sitcom? And B, I think we're going to get a much higher download rate and people into this than you think. This is a very large show.
Listen, and by all means, for me, it's not even just about the content of the show. And again, for me, the dialect was just tough to get by. But I'm sure a bunch of people from Londonderry are probably going to have a hard time listening to a bunch of dudes from Boston talk. That
Londonderry
being said,
or Derry. Don't pick a side.
Well,
if you guys remember our Irish friend Pete from back in the day, that's where he was from.
What did he say? Probably Derry?
Yeah, he said Derry.
Depends on if you're Protestant or if
we'll get into it. The very first shot of the episode gets into it, so we'll talk about it in a second. But before we do that, Joe, you did pick the episode. Specific reasoning behind why you wanted us to do Derry Girls?
To torture me.
It's not what?
To torture me.
It was to torture Ferg. Well, like I said, genuinely, we really liked this show. I've always been really fascinated by the Troubles. I think it's a really fascinating political and sociological thing that's pretty much still going on, right? They say 30 years of sort of main strife, but hundreds of years and whatever. There's also a very interesting but very long book called Making Sense of the Troubles. If anybody ever wants to sort of dive in deeper, I highly recommend. But to me, this show was basically, if I had to describe it, it's Clueless, but poor people in the town the undertones are from. It's a teen girl drama that takes place in 1994 in the middle of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. I think that's a really interesting concept. And some of the greatest music of all time came from Northern Ireland in such a tiny little place.
So it's not fun getting into Troubles.
I would say it's not fun getting into the Troubles.
So, Joe, just out of curiosity, you just mentioned that some of the greatest music of all time came out of the Northern Ireland in the early 90s. Can you give me a few examples?
Oh, well, not so much in the early 90s, but from the 70s to the 80s, the Undertones,
U2?
Protex, Rudy, the Moondogs.
U2?
Clive Culbertson, No Sweat. I can go on forever.
The Moondogs went on to be a tag team in the WWF, correct?
They did, right after they put out their first single in Northern Ireland. But yeah, lots of great music. And they play, I mean, even more like, contemporary music, right? Like, I mean, the Cranberries were a huge band even in America, right? They play the Cranberries in this. So
I covered a Cranberry song in my day.
I think when you come from a place that, I always think of it as like, if you're in a place that's full of so much conflict, then like the idea to make art is so much more appealing, right? Like you want to get with your friends and play music or write or paint or do anything because you want to sort of drift away from it. And that's what I thought the appeal of this show was. It's people living in that life and what they did, trying to sort of make sense of everything and try to not have it sort of overtake everything. But it always comes up. I mean, they go to their first day of school and they have to go through checkpoints, right? It's just an interesting conceit for a show.
I don't know if it's because of the Catholic school element of it, but it wasn't until I was like reading back after that I had any idea that it was a timepiece. Like there wasn't a lot in the episode. I guess you see like a TV and stuff early on, but not a lot that would have drew you to the fact that it was 1994. A couple quick references really, but it wasn't like very obvious.
I agree.
Yeah, it takes, as the season goes on, it's like a little more obvious, you know what I mean, in the more social. I mean, I thought it was funny. One of the first things you notice is that she's got an Angela Lansbury poster in her bedroom, which is like, I mean, that show went from 84 to 96 or something weird like that. Like, so that gives you a weird time frame. I also did look up because I immediately thought, you can love Angela Lansbury, and she's Irish, right? So that makes sense, right?
I didn't know that.
She is Irish. Well, she was born Irish and grew up in London or England, if I recall correctly. And she's like 97 too. She's still alive. But I went looking. I wanted to find an Angela Lansbury poster that wasn't a modern reprint, because I got obsessed with the fact that, like, how hard would it be to find an Angela Lansbury poster, like, at the mall in 1994? And I couldn't find any posters that weren't for either TV shows or movies that were just her face, that weren't, like, companies now making reprints. Then all of you should watch your mail, because you'll be getting posters of Angela Lansbury soon.
What do you got? What would I...
Buttons.
Joe's list of old lady crushes just keeps going.
Hey, Angela Lansbury I respect very much, but she's not on my crush list. That being said... And Murder, She Wrote was on forever. I know it always really comes up, shows that were either on before or after wrestling.
I was going to say, we all know it because it was on right before Raw.
Right, so we just saw the end of like the last theme song.
Yeah, we always got to see her typing.
Yeah, we saw her typing like 500 times.
You guys didn't watch Murder, She Wrote?
No,
only in that
a 7-year-old woman.
Yeah, I never watched it. I imagine I wouldn't hate it now, but as a kid, it had no appeal to me.
Oh, it wasn't a bad show. I mean, I used to watch it with my grandmother. It wasn't a bad show. Same thing with the Dick Van Dyke murder show.
Oh, the mysteries or whatever it was. When he
Diagnosis
He was
Murders.
a doctor.
I remember that one.
Murders.
Yeah.
It's one of those shows that
Diagnosis Murder.
Yeah, it's one of the shows where like you wouldn't go out of your way to watch it, but if you ever caught yourself like watching an episode, you're like, fuck, now I have to stick around for this episode because I want to see what happens now.
That's what Law and Order SVU does.
Yeah, or any Law and Order. They're all garbage, but they know the perfect formula to keep you engaged.
And they're smart enough to know to put it on for like 17 straight hours one day so you just don't leave the couch.
So I guess we should get right into the episode because I mentioned it earlier. The opening shot deals with the whole Londonderry versus Derry thing because you see a military truck drive by during the opening narration and you see a sign that says, "Welcome to Londonderry," and, you know, a couple kids spray painting over the London part. So,
and the now entering free Derry is still there, and people still spray paint over the London part of Derry all the time.
And I guess not usually our lane, but if you want to get into a little of the history, I'm not even super aware. Like, I just know that Londonderry is in Northern Ireland, and that's part of the UK, correct?
Yeah, so I figured I would give just like a quick 2-minute. Again, you should read up on it because it's really extensive, and I'm not going to give
but probably won't if we're being...
I'm just saying, if you want to know more about it, I'm saying don't just take my tidbit here. But essentially, you have a fight going on in Northern Ireland between Protestants and Catholics, right? So Protestants are unified and want to be part of the UK and England, whereas the Catholics want to be like a free republic. And that's always been sort of at odds. But it's like a huge issue. It's not just like he lives down the street and I don't like him. It's like dividing lines, right? And then the IRA is the Irish Republican Army. They're the ones who want to keep away from the UK. They're the ones who are like fighting, and they're mainly known for bombings. So that's sort of 1994 would sort of be the tail end of the real sort of violent clashes going on between the English and the Irish.
And that's also where we got Irish car bombs from.
Yeah, don't say that ever. I think, who was it? Our friend Chris, who we affectionately call Stupid, who we were in a Irish bar once, and he asked for an Irish car bomb, and I like hit him and was like, don't say that. He was like, what? And the like Irish waitress with a brogue was like, what did you say? And I was like trying to get him to realize. I was like, congratulations. Whatever you get now has like, I don't even want to know what in it, but like know where you are, man.
Boogers and cum.
Probably boogers and cum. Is that like Bailey's and cream or whatever? Yeah.
Baileys and cream and boogers and cum. Oh my lord.
But the IRA is in Sons of Anarchy. That's who they deal with and get all their guns from, and then they deal it throughout the United States.
And there's a whole history to us being from Boston with the IRA, because Boston has such a Irish population with like people helping to smuggle things in and out, or people in and out. So yeah, you can go down a million roads. But still to this day, it's still a divisive thing, and there still are forms of the IRA active, and it's still like, which is weird because we're recording this. Pull the curtain back a little bit. The week the Queen died in England.
Yes.
Yes.
So I imagine this will be a more divisive topic that'll be brought up if you're in Northern Ireland around this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get too into it. You just see all these memes, and depending on where you stand, there's like, see, it's either very like hardcore memorializing or a lot of like Ireland, pro-Ireland stuff. So I don't want to get too into it because that's not our lane, and we
don't do politics. Yeah,
we have people who have listened in all these countries, so we will stay the fuck out of it.
We're just stating the facts as people who don't really know anything. And
just the memes are, hey, do you like Derry Girls? No, that show sucks. Back and forth.
Well, all right. So we're going to get into it. So now we hear some like opening narration. Like I said, we saw that clip, and it's basically the diary of Erin Quinn. And she says how she's 16 years old, where she comes from, et cetera, et cetera. But as the narration goes off, we realize that it's not Erin, who we see in the establishing shot laying in bed, who's actually reading it. It's her cousin, who's sitting, I don't know, by her bed, just reading her diary. Orla, I believe her name, is just reading.
She's reading it out loud too.
Yeah, she's reading out loud, like she stole her cousin's diary and is reading it. But Erin is in bed and wakes up to hearing this.
And again, whether or not you find this a funny joke, this is a joke. This is part of the comedy that goes with the sit here.
I have a question for you guys. Do any of you, or have any of you, ever actually kept a diary or a journal?
I had a live journal, which was pretty popular for a while, when we were in high school coming out of that.
I'm talking more private facing.
No.
I have traveling before. Like going on, like when we did that tour of the Southeast that time, I journaled sort of every day as to like what we were doing and what we were seeing in like a book that I still have. But like, yeah, again, it wasn't for anybody to ever see. It was just like driving around and writing. But that's the only time, only once ever.
I feel like you see it come up a lot in TV and movies, and I don't really know anybody who's. I mean, I've done it before. Just I hear it's good to do. I was never consistent with it though. But you see it a lot in movies and TV, and I don't really know anybody I could say who actually does it.
Doug Funny sure like doing it.
Yeah, I think in television, it's a good device for narration. So it's like kind of an easy out for that. But yeah, with me, it's funny. I think when we look at today's world, we get criticized for taking photos of everything and not being in the moment. But in a lot of ways, it's this like kind of live way of documenting and journaling without, say, maybe your personal thoughts and opinions. But you can go back and look through your camera roll the same way you could go back and read your old journal, right? And you see all these photos of where you've been and times you've had. And I don't know, I kind of look at it as a mindless way of doing that in a way.
Yeah, I guess if you look at like a social media platform that shows you like your memories a year later or whatever, like it's a way of sort of cycling through. I think the problem is that like eventually they will all fall. And then what happens to your stuff, right? Like you could lose your phone or you could...
Right, but you could lose your journal just the same, right?
Sure.
So... like, I'm one of those guys who's guilty of taking a picture of like every fucking thing I do, but I don't necessarily post all of them, but I'll still look through my phone from time to time and kind of recap that way.
I'm king of taking a picture of everything I do and then never being able to find that picture when I want to see it later.
Yeah, I'm king of taking pictures the one time I do anything interesting a week, which is the like one downside of working from home where you're like, what did you do today? But like, the same thing I did every day. Yeah. But we made pizza on the grill last night, which we had never done before. And it was like mind-blowingly good. And I took a picture of it and I was going to put it in the chat. And then I literally stopped myself and was like, I don't want to be one of those guys who takes pictures of his food and then never sent it.
I take pictures of my food all the time.
Pizza on the grill, highly recommend.
Yeah, grilled pizza's good.
But yeah, so from there we get just like a little title screen. There's not so much a intro per se. Just kind of you get this screen that says Derry Girls. Says written and created by Lisa McGee.
Fuck not much you, Lisa McGee.
I thought it was interesting to do that just have her name stapled onto the show like that. I don't know. I feel like that's something that when you're at a certain point of celebrity or fame and you would start like Steven Spielberg presents or Quentin Tarantino directed, but like to have this show that's right from the start to just kind of like instantly be like, I'm the person behind this. It's different than just having that little title screen like in the intros. Like, I don't know.
You see it more with things based on books, and this was off her book, her autobiography or something.
Oh, I
Who
didn't see
is
that.
she?
She doesn't have a ton of credits we would know. Most of the people in this don't have a lot of credits we would really know. Some people show up in some things or like, oh, I guess they were here and there. But like a lot of it is, you know, Ireland or UK based stuff. I think this might be basically like her memoirs or like just like her trying to write about her experiences as a kid.
Yeah.
Also, weird thing to point out here too is that everybody in this show is so much older than what they're playing.
Well, yes, one, I'll bring it up when we meet her. One more so than the rest.
Yeah, one's like our age.
Yeah. I'll bring it up when we introduce the
It gave
character.
me like flashbacks to Dawson's Creek when they're all like 30 and in high school.
Oh god,
And,
the end of 90210. We were like, there is no way that you guys look like you could ever be the age you are.
And I guess before we get too far into the episode itself, is there anything you guys can think of that this show reminds you of? Like, is there something maybe that we grew up with in America or has been around here that's a little bit more relatable to people that maybe don't know this show?
I don't really feel like there were sitcoms. Like, I think the time frame this is referencing, we didn't really have anything like that was dark enough like this, but also funny. Like maybe something like My So-Called Life would have been close to
I was
this.
thinking the same exact thing, but it's show's too dramatic.
I was
dramatic,
thinking
yeah.
Freaks and Geeks.
Oh yeah, it's got a little bit. They're a little
is-
younger, but yeah, it's definitely in that tone.
Okay, if we took Freaks and Geeks and put it in the time of My So-Called Life, I feel like it'd be the perfect analog, yeah.
And by the way, I was on the fence of choosing Freaks and Geeks. I'm not positive it's a sitcom, but you just open that floodgate. So it's coming
Freaks
in
and
the
Geeks is
future.
for sure a sitcom, and so is this. But is Freaks and Geeks an hour long?
No, half hour.
Are they half hour?
I thought Freaks and Geeks was an hour, but I could
I
be
thought
wrong.
it was an hour, but yeah, I could
I'm
be wrong.
positive it's a half hour. I watched
Don't
it
make
again
me watch
recently.
more teen dramas.
Freaks and Geeks.
You've
you
never
like
seen
Don't
Freaks
worry
and
about it.
Geeks?
I have never seen Freaks and Geeks.
Star-studded
Wow.
cast.
It's not a
I'm
drama.
not a 13-year-old girl. Stop picking
It's not a
13-year-old
girl
shows.
show.
You know what's funny? That line shows you how little Gordo knows about Freaks and Geeks.
Or television in general, or what we do.
Just IMDb the cast real quick.
You know what?
Gordo.
You know what I want, but it's going to be impossible. I want Gordo to figure out what Freaks and Geeks is and then tell us what he thought it was. Because he's definitely thinking of something completely different.
It sounds like a high school that is full of freaks and geeks if you're comparing it to this show. It follows a geek crowd and a freak crowd, like a like, freak on a leash stuff. That's what I'm getting.
This is using the word in the definition.
yeah.
Well, you're asking me, and I'm giving you my honest input. If you're comparing it to this, I'm imagining a high school, middle school age drama centered around girls who don't feel like they quite fit in, and maybe they're geeky and maybe they're freaky, but they try and make it after all,
I just told you
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna
had to
pick
do
it.
so hard not laughing there so that we could cut your audio from that later because with the video, you start dancing when you say freaky and deaky.
He goes freaky deaky, and then he ends it with a line from the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
It's like, then they leave school to go to their newspaper job.
What was it
Don't
about?
worry, Gordo. I just told you I'm gonna pick it, and I don't pick shows that aren't good.
We'll cover it. We'll cover it down the line, Gordo. So let's not
So
eat up
when
too
we
much of the
cover
show.
it, you're going to cut back to what I'm saying now, and
Oh, there will be a mega cut of the two, yeah. It'll be you dancing to Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, we'll throw a video up. But by the way, S1E1Pod, if you don't already follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, so from that little title screen, we get into, like, Erin's house, and, like, we see the whole family, like, her parents, and there's, like, a baby, and grandpa, and there's, like, just, like, this argument. It starts off with this argument between Erin and Orla because she's mad about the whole diary situation.
This whole scene is a very sitcom scene.
no.
Keep telling
It's a
yourself that.
scene. Yeah, it's
The
very much
family
a scene.
arguing and the grandfather in the chair yelling at the
Although
father-in-law.
this
That
scene
part.
gave me my only laugh of the whole episode, and that was when the grandfather's telling the dad, like, "I'm gonna find something on you, like leave my
grandpa's
daughter
the
alone."
best
He's like, "I'm
character.
married to your daughter."
Later on, he has the best line of the whole show too, which is like a real sleeper line. But he kind of reminds me of the grandfather in Fargo, who just hates William H. Macy, and he's like, "They'll always be taken care of. No Gene, no money." He just hates William H. Macy so much.
During when Erin's talking to her mother, brings up how Macaulay Culkin divorced his parents.
That's when I realized that it took place in the past. I know
Yeah,
you
you
mentioned
know-
it earlier, and it was that line that did it for me.
At that time, it didn't dawn on me. I just thought it was a really weird reference to pull. And I
Like it was 2022, and they're like referencing Macaulay Culkin
I was
from that
like,
long ago.
what did this girl
After
like,
Richie
care
Rich
about?
tanked.
Yeah, it just seemed like a weird thing for this girl to use as her backup reference out of nowhere. But now that you say it, it makes sense. But in the moment, I'm like, what? It's so random.
And who will always feel bad for in Macaulay Culkin? One of the main reasons he didn't actually divorce his parents, but he like separated from them. He was like 16 at that point. You can kind of just leave.
Yeah, it was
willy-nilly.
like it was. Yeah, but it's for financial reasons, right? So they're not in control of his, money and everything like that.
Right, yeah, and he did okay. He got away, and luckily he's got more money than he ever needs, and he doesn't have to deal with his nightmare parents anymore, which is great. But
And he
apparently,
escaped those damn wet bandits.
well, apparently his dad, who was the manager for him or whatever, was like, "I'm not letting you put him in Home Alone 2 unless you let him also be in The Good Son," because he wanted him to like break out into a different type of role or whatever.
Hey, good on him.
But I can't remember if they'd already filmed a bunch, but they for sure had hired the kid to be in the movie. And then they had to go to the kid and be like, "Sorry, Henry, you're out of here."
Sorry,
I think
Henry.
they paid him whatever money, but like,
Oh, there's a
whoever that
different
kid
kid
is.
in The Good Son. So someone
Yeah.
else. Okay.
No,
So, like, that's the kind of shit
Culkin
Macaulay
is why
Culkin's
that
dad
movie
would
was
do.
scary, though. So, you know what? It was the right move.
It's a weird movie.
It is a weird movie.
Can't say I've seen it.
I don't know if it would hold up as a movie for you watching for your first time in your mid-30s, because like I just don't think it would have the same impact. But if you saw it when you were a kid and Home Alone kid is like murdering people, it's a little fucked up.
Yeah, he was
I
just
imagine-
basically he was being kind of like freaky deaky, and
But we found out at the end he wasn't gonna make it after all.
yeah. Da, 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 da.
I was gonna say, should we all throw our hats?
Yeah.
I got to that, and I don't want to have to get up and get it.
It's the ceiling fan and just shreds.
My headphones go over my head, so it would be very inconvenient. But yeah, this is also the first. The Macaulay Culkin conversation was the first time they got into a whole Protestant thing, right? Because the mother thinks that this whole boy who she doesn't know who it is who divorced his parents must be Protestant. And Erin's like, isn't Protestant, Ma.
It's a pretty Irish name too, Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah. What was his? He had 50 siblings. We're talking about Macaulay Culkin too much. I was trying to think of some of his. Kieran.
Yeah,
Kieran.
It's funny because they all look the same too. They all
look very similar, yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned the grandfather earlier. It cuts to him like right after that argument, and he's just kind of watching TV. And they're talking about how they're bombing the bridge. I don't know if that was what that was specifically historically, but I assume there's something that was going on in '94 that this is being referenced to.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's taken out of context just to be like, this happened so often and this was used as a device. But I do love that the whole conceit of the parents is they're mad that that's happening because it might keep the kids out of school one extra day, which I feel like, again, is a very sitcom-y parent kind of joke to make.
No, that's a reality thing. I feel the same way.
I understand you as a
full
parent,
summer.
but it's also the kind of thing they joke about in sitcoms.
Erin and her cousin, they have to go to school. And as like they're getting ready to head out, the grandfather looks over at Erin's father, and Jerry, I believe is his name. And he was saying how they shouldn't have to take the bus, that, he should be driving them. You useless shit. He's like, I have to work, Joe. He's like, work, is that what you call it?
The two funniest lines this whole episode are him both times. And the first one is definitely says, "You useless shit."
Him calling him useless shit. But then he tells him to leave his Mary alone, his daughter. And he's like, we've been married for 17 years. We have 2 children. It's like, I like that they've been together this long.
The
so
dad
you figure
still hates him.
He's still just like, why are you still here?
He's like, "I'll find some dirt on you yet."
That's the most sitcom-y thing about this show. Is
That
the
was a very
in-laws
sitcom
hating.
moment.
Said he has people working on it too.
I feel like the people he has working on it are like Cotton Hill's friends. Like, whenever they cut to Cotton Hill's friends in King of the Hill, he's got like his old group from World War II It's like Topsy. Just takes the big bubbles of his mouth. Like just these like inept sort of old guys. Like I can't imagine his crew is like, that dynamic.
And right before the girls do leave, you see this shot where Erin has like a denim jacket on instead of her typical blazer that's part of the uniform. And her mom stops her right there. And she's like, you can't wear that. And Erin's telling her how she wanted to put her own spin on the uniform this year. She said she's not a clone and that she should be able to express her individuality. And says she is not going to wear a blazer, which obviously, you know how that's going to end. But you technically don't have a choice in the matter, right? This isn't just your parents saying you can't wear it, right?
No.
As soon as you got to school, they would be like, what are you doing? And make her take it off.
You know what this instantly reminded me of was the Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because technically is wearing it. And I don't think they ever made him change that, did they?
We just wore it inside out, so I guess technically he was wearing his uniform.
So she's
He
just
caught them
adding
on a
something
loophole.
on top of it so I could see. I don't know.
But also, I always took it more like she's going to school in a denim jacket, but like you just put that over your school uniform because it's like your coat.
But it was in lieu of the blazer,
off,
right? So they have a blazer that they're supposed to wear. So, you should be wearing that instead of the blazer.
Right. I'm just saying, like, she could have left the house with that on over her jacket, and her mom probably would have been like, what are you doing? And she'd been like, oh, I'm cold. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
And then she could have left and taken the jacket off, which is another huge trope of like sitcoms and everything, right? The kid runs down till the parents can't see them anymore and changes or puts makeup on or whatever.
I don't know if this is relatable to you guys, but the response to Erin saying that, I'm not going to be like, just like everyone else, I'm going to be my own person and do as I choose. The mother just goes, Jerry, pass me the wooden spoon. And I don't know about you guys, and I know the world has changed a little bit, but I certainly have been hit with a wooden spoon when I was a child.
1,000 times, yeah.
Not me.
The reason I used to get it all the time was, pre-cell phone, pre-things, you're afraid to like lose things. I would always write on my hand. Like nothing crazy, like weird or whatever. You'd be like, oh, like
you would just draw those fucking black bars that you refused to tell me what they meant.
That was in a notebook. But like, you write like dentist 3 p.m. or whatever on your hand so you don't forget it because you have no other way of reminding yourself because you're like 14 or whatever. And then I would forget and I'd go home. And anytime I did that, my mom would catch me and then just smack my hand so hard with a wooden spoon.
I have a hard time believing that the stuff you wrote in your hand wasn't stupid shit and that it was just dentist 3 p.m.
You've known me my whole life. Do you remember me walking around with things that said like, I didn't have my own Pledge of Allegiance or anything written on my hands.
I don't remember that, but I also don't remember you walking around with dentist on your hands, so that's not a good example.
My teeth don't remember it either.
That's Joe was gonna. Well, Joe for years was toying with getting the knuckle tattoos, and he was gonna have it just say dentist across his hands.
Dentist 3 p.m.
Why wouldn't you do 2:30? That's the best time to see a dentist.
I guess
hey,
that's
there
fair.
you go.
Gordo, get one.
I made a funny.
Hey, well, count that one.
So we so from that the get the spoon comment, it cuts over to her and her cousin walking outside. And I apologize. Her name's Orla, right? The cousin. I'm gonna forget that over and over again because it's just not a name that I've heard enough in life. They're walking down the street, and of course, Erin doesn't have the denim jacket on anymore. And this is when they meet up with their friend Claire, who's waiting for them outside, who does have a denim jacket on, because apparently this was the thing the two of them decided they were going to do together.
Did anybody here ever wear anything to school where they were like immediately told to take it off?
I think we talked about this in an older episode. In high school, I got spoken to for wearing a Circle Jerks t-shirt.
Oh, right, yeah. Maybe we talked about them. The time I wore I wore a bullet belt to school, and they were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm walking into a school like with a fucking bandolier of bullets on." And they were like, "Why don't you repeat that sentence?" I was like, "Oh, I'll take these off. I understand now."
I was never told to take it off, and my shirts all said "suck it" because they were DX shirts.
The amount of wrestling shirts that teachers had to just look at and be like, "What the fuck?" in the 90s.
Look at that boy wearing it.
No one made me take off my Stone Cold Nut shirt.
Someday, Gordo, you'll find a new version of that Stone. There are so many people making bootleg wrestling shirts right now. I just got a WrestleMania 8 shirt in the mail. How has nobody bootlegged the Stone Cold with his balls out shirt and made it bigger? I don't get it.
It turned into what are those called? Like the Berenstain Bears and
Mandela
effect.
You remember it
yeah,
wrong.
it's a Mandela effect. Like I remember it as well as Gordo did, and it just doesn't exist.
Reddit found it. R Squared Circle found the Stone Cold Nut shirt.
It was the wrong one, though.
That wasn't the shirt, though. The shirt that they first pulled
So
up.
that means that there were multiple Stone Cold Nut shirts out there.
No, that means somebody had Photoshop. The one you had was him doing a stunner and one slipped out, right?
No, it's the guy in the corner, and he's kicking.
Yeah.
So it's you could see the side of his leg, and I don't even think his nuts were actually out. I think it was just his muscles. But
I don't want to get too far into the wrestling shirt conversation in this episode because I don't know about the crossover appeal from the Derry Girls crowd. I do want to say this because we're talking about
9 of them.
One of the worst wrestling shirts of all time. There's an AJ Styles shirt from when he was in TNA that looks like it was just written in cum.
Oh, Jesus.
I'll send you guys a picture when we have an opportunity.
Please do, yeah. And I'm guessing, again, this is not a very good crossover with the Derry Girls crowd.
No, probably not. So we should probably get on from that. But
Derry Girls community.
I was waiting for somebody to say it.
I like that when Claire sees that Aaron doesn't have the jacket on, she's like, "What's going on?" She's like, "I'm not going to be an individual on my own," which I thought was a good line.
Yeah, I do like the whole thing of we're going to be individuals and do the same thing. I mean, that's very much being a teenager, right?
Yeah, and then from there they go into this little kind of convenience store. I forget what kind of store it was called.
It was called Dennis Wee Shop.
Yeah, a Wee Shop, but I think that's a thing, right? I just don't know what that translates to. It looks like just a convenience store for what we
Probably
use
like a
here.
corner
Yeah,
store.
with a huge
like
candy
Candy
counter, though.
Reminded
Which
me
we
of
had a
John's
store like that
Dugout
when we were
before.
kids. Yeah, that was open before a school that just sold individual candies until our town was like, "Are you fucking high? You're obviously waking up at 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. to open this store, and then you're closing it again at 8 a.m. and then opening again at 2:30. We understand what you're trying to do here." And all these kids are coming into school jacked up on candy.
And it was by a bunch of bomb bags.
Yeah, and also they sold things like that too. That's when they got, I think, the most
Fart
trouble. They were like,
bombs, yeah.
Yeah, I know
kids
it-
eating a bunch of licorice and not licorice. What do you call those? Like gummies that you get for a penny each or whatever. And getting all the sugar high is one thing, but then you give them those stupid bags that exploded water everywhere in the school. Bad news.
Right before you walk into third grade, how about a quick opportunity to blow your lunch money on Pogs?
I love
Man, the money wasted on Pogs.
Yeah, I
And then
know.
they banned Pogs.
They
Yeah.
did ban Pogs. Why
It was
did
gambling. Gambling.
they? Yeah.
No, someone caught a slammer to the eye and got a black eye.
Well, they said
No, their excuse were the slammers dented the floor, but it was because we're gambling was the real reason, and they didn't want to say it for some
Who was
reason.
slamming it that dented the floor?
nobody.
Nobody. None of them. If you had a slammer that was that heavy, it was actually a hockey puck, and you got lied to at the Pog store. You
That
couldn't
school
actually
was-
take a slammer.
That school was made of brick and lead. There was no denting it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We broke into that one time. There was no way that nobody was denting it.
It was gambling. It was because we played for keeps. For those of you listening, I don't know the age difference between some of the people listening and us, but when Pogs were in their day in the 90s, essentially all you did was you had a stack of these. They're little cardboardy circles.
Cardboard discs.
Yeah,
Like
little
milk cap
discs.
inserts.
Yeah,
and,
milk caps.
And you threw a big metal one at it, and anything that flipped over, you got to keep. So if you were playing with other people, you'd all pull your Pogs together to make that little tower. So you had an opportunity to win someone else's Pogs, which in turn was interpreted as gambling.
Can I make a suggestion?
Do you want us to make S1E1
S1E1 Pogs.
Pogs? Yes.
Sure, but I'm going to take over on this one. Instead of making S1E1s, I'm just going to make all the ones that had O.J. Simpson that said "Don't squeeze the juice" on them from 1994 and the
That
era
was a
of Pogs.
slammer.
No,
That was
the
OJ
slammer. The slammer was different. The slammer was guilty, not guilty, and there were bars on one
each side.
Wasn't it didn't have a weird edge to it? Because they also
There was a
had,
lot of OJ
razor
ones.
edges.
Yeah. It was very topical at the time. It wasn't like there was one officially licensed O.J. Simpson Pog.
There was no licensing involved here.
Well, yeah, but who made the Alf Pogs?
He's back.
In Pog form.
But
That
yeah, so
includes way too much conversation.
Yeah, a lot of Pog
on
talk.
Pogs.
They're in the store, and Claire, there's kind of a runner going on throughout the episode that she's on a diet, right? She's trying to fast. She's smelling the candy here. It's the first time we're seeing that. And I thought that was a little bit too much of a common thing where you got the one girl that was a little chubbier than the rest that's on a diet. And it's addressed the first time you ever meet her is that she's trying to deal with weight stuff.
Well, that's not really why she's doing it, though.
Yeah, she's doing it because of the Africa thing. She's doing it in solidarity and taking money to
Yeah, she's
donate.
fasting.
Oh,
for
did I
a
miss that?
cause.
All right, so I caught the
Yeah.
fast. And then
Yeah,
she,
the fast is for a cause. That's why later
Okay.
on when she's eating,
thought it was
she's
a
like, "I'll give you your
dietary
money back."
I didn't catch any of that, and I thought throughout the whole episode she was just a little dumb.
No, she
So you
keeps
guys
naming.
thought the show was dumb, but you apparently didn't watch it.
Yeah,
I did
Nick and I
watch
had
it.
no problem pulling this out.
I couldn't understand the words.
Did you think she was dumb and forgot how to eat?
No, that like she just was not able to eat at certain times, but because I couldn't understand what the fuck was.
You can't do that, man.
Yes, I can. I just did.
Also, as a person with ear problems his whole life, just put the subtitles on, man.
There was no subtitles.
It's on Netflix. There are subtitles. What's wrong
I
with
didn't
you?
watch it on Netflix. I watched it on our drive.
Well, I'm sorry that you couldn't just go to your TV and watch it with the subtitles on. You would have solved yourself a lot of.
I didn't know it was available.
I like that, due to, a little spit in a cup. Gordo's like X amount % Irish, so now it gives him full reign to just make fun of their dialect.
Actually, I'm like a quarter. My grandmother was from Ireland.
That's okay. Yeah, just go, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, oh, it's okay, I'm Irish.
I'm 60%. You've insulted me, sir.
I do love that's such a great American thing, though. I will say, if we're talking about people in other countries, if anybody's listening who's not in America, anybody in this country who's 1% of anything will just die on that hill the rest of their life.
It's even funny when you see them tell people from the actual country, like if you were to bump into somebody from Ireland, I'm Irish, and then they're like, no, I get it, but you're not. Like you're not.
I'm 2%
American.
Irish. Be like, we that's fine, thank you. Yeah,
we're the only country that doesn't admit where they're from.
Yeah, it's
I'm
so
100% American.
Yeah, like
no. There are plenty of people who just say they're Americans. You don't want to have conversations with those people, though.
But yeah, no, I think that's very interesting that we do that. Where we identify as something where we are vaguely, we're not really. We're American at the end of the day. We were born and raised there, like everyone here. The five of us are all born.
That's ending with us because that comes more from our parents. It comes from our grandparents, where they all talk about where they came from, and that's slowly dying off with age.
Well, I bet as generations go on, it gets more and more muddled, right? So
I was gonna say, I think that's more of an immigrant mentality. That like, especially if you come, like I said, my grandparents all were both immigrants. I know other people here, parents weren't from this country, and I think that as that happens,
Well, I think even like those older generations too, like first off, for our generation, we're not even that far removed from our ancestors and where they came from.
Yeah.
But also, to a fault, there was a lot of like, stay within your own, right? There was a lot of that happened in the earlier generations.
Sure, yeah.
So there was a lot
neighborhoods and stuff.
A lot of Italian marrying Italian. There was a lot of Irish marrying Irish, so on and so forth. Whereas our generation, that's kind of out the window completely. Not that didn't exist at all then, but it was like, there were videos like the Madonna Like a Prayer video was how taboo it was to have like an interracial relationship. Where now it's like it's so commonplace 20, 30 years later.
I mean, just take it to sitcoms. Look at the Jeffersons, where their neighbors across the street are an interracial couple, and it's, 1974 or whatever, and it's like a huge deal to do that on TV.
Yeah.
I would say, too, that it's also, is there really an American culture? Like, there is.
Hot dogs, popcorn. I looked this up before because I got really curious.
Popcorn is so... I love popcorn more than anything, and saying that our culture is represented by popcorn is so fun.
But you guys know what I mean, right? Like,
no, I do, and that's... But so for me, I looked this up before because this has nothing to do with the show. So I apologize to those listening.
We're tangent heavy.
But there was a point where, you see people here on Cinco de Mayo, right? Just dressing up in the most ridiculous interpretation of Mexican culture, right? With the fake sombreros and mustaches and going to bars and drinking tequila all day. And that's what American kids do all day in celebration of another country's day. It's not their independence. I forget. My history's poor. But so I was like, I wonder what people in other countries do. Like, do they celebrate the 4th of July and do shit like that?
I don't even want to know about that.
And there are like countries that have done like America parties. And like, that's essentially what happens is they eat hot dogs and like popcorn.
Oh, look at me. I'm a stupid American.
And they drink Budweisers and stuff like that. And it does exist.
All I can think of is when they find the German soldier in Saving Private Ryan, and he's like, Betty Boop, what a dish. Like, I feel like that's everybody at one of those parties.
That's good to know.
I
figured for your reference, you would have used St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day is a big
that happens
aping
too,
of the culture, yeah.
St. Patrick was Italian.
He actually is English. That's like the real thing behind that. That's what Italians always say. But he was like more like, I think like culturally. Like he had Italian family, but he grew up in England. It's one of those things.
Yeah, but you like try telling that. That's like telling anybody, be like, historically Jesus would have been a Middle Eastern man. People are like, get the fuck out of here. It's so fun to say to people. It's like, oh no, he was just a white guy with blonde hair walking around the middle of the Okay, never mind.
He's from California. He just moved to Jerusalem.
Yeah, he was a surfer.
I would think the Son of God can be whatever color he wants to be, all right?
He's all
I guess that's an interpretation too, but it seems like the only color he wants to be is what white people have drawn him as for like hundreds of years.
Which is one of the Gibb brothers.
Yeah, basically he's in the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
He did have a problem staying alive though.
Oh.
Hey!
Hey-oh. So, all right. So let's talk about Derry Girls again.
Catholic listeners.
And the Protestants. We're not taking sides here.
No sides.
I should have said
Politically on the episode.
So while they're in the store, Claire's talking about how she's like sponsoring someone from Ethiopia. And that's what the fasting's about, as you guys said, which I didn't catch. And she's trying to get Erin to like help sponsor this child. And during that, like, I can't, what else happened in that to me? There was a lot. And I'll admit, I had a little bit of a hard time following some of that dialogue.
They were buying candy, and then they went to go put it back because Erin got guilted into not buying the candy and giving the money to Claire for her fast. And then the shopkeeper starts screaming at them. And he calls her, what does he call her? It made me laugh so hard. He calls her, I have it written down because I laughed so hard at it.
Smart hole.
Smart hole. I just love that. You smart hole. I'm going to start using that.
He was a very interesting character. I would be curious. Joe, did you watch this whole run?
Yes.
Does he come back?
I believe so, yeah.
I was going to say, he was such an extreme character that I would be shocked if he played it that wild if he was intended for just a quick, like, one-off.
Yeah, he definitely comes back, I think, at least in this season. Because, I mean, this is another thing, too, is the seasons are, tend to be in Europe and Ireland, everything. Shows are always short, right? Like, a season is, 7 to 8 episodes. So I think he comes back in this, but it's hard to not conflate episodes together when seasons are so short versus a show that's like The Office or something, where there's such big differentiating points because so much time takes place.
The way he screamed "get out" at them too was so bizarre. It was very cartoony the way he did it.
I feel like it sucks to have to be the shopkeeper who does all the work, but if you don't want kids putting their hands in the candy, make it so kids can't put their hands in the candy. You know what I mean? Have them ring it up, or have them want it, and you ring it up and give it to them after they've paid. That's how that transaction should go down.
Once they did get kicked out of this shop, we end up outside, and there's this kid named David who's hanging a poster for a show he's playing, and it's very clear that Erin has a big crush on him.
It's called a gig,
yes.
Jay.
Tomato.
I will say, though, as somebody who's been in a bunch of bands, Gordo's been in a bunch of bands, do you ever use gig? I always say show.
Yeah, I always say show.
I would never say concert, but I don't say gig.
Depending on the venue, you would say concert. If it's but I've never played at a place that was big enough for me to use the word concert.
Oh God, no.
So,
but
show.
I guess I've seen. Yeah, I guess if I went to go see Dwight Yoakam, that's a concert. But if you go to see your friend's shitty punk band, it's a show. Yeah.
I mean, if you're playing 5,000 plus stadiums, that's a concert.
I feel like if there's seating, it feels like a concert. If it's all standing, it feels like a show.
Just from a quick Google search, the difference between a gig and a show just seems to be a gig is before you have any real live following of people who would come to see you, and then once you generate a following, they turn into shows.
So if you're just like the house band and people happen to see you because they're already there by circumstance.
That's just a gig. So I've only ever played gigs.
I was going to say, so I've only ever... What's below a gig? Because I feel like...
I've played a lot of those too. I'm not sure what they call them.
Open mic night is below a gig.
I have played.
Gordo, I've seen you do some open mic nights before.
I used to host one at the old strip club.
Oh, I played that once.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Club Caravan.
Gigging is also when wrestlers will cut their foreheads with a razor blade to bleed.
Oh, I thought that was cutting.
Well, it's blading or gigging.
Gigging.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah.
But if you do it when you're a more known wrestler, it's called showing.
So
Lucha.
Oh, I just got it.
There it is.
So yeah, during this conversation, it's very clear that Erin has a thing for him. and he's asking for a lighter, and she doesn't smoke, and then she's like questioning herself, like, why don't I smoke?
I love that question. Why don't I smoke?
And Orla has the lighter, but she also doesn't smoke. She just likes melting stuff. All right.
Good for her.
I can relate.
And
Wait, that was definitely us as
yeah,
kids
it was us
too,
when,
right?
we were kids.
Yeah, yeah.
But also we were smoking.
Also that too.
Yeah.
I felt like a little bit of everything of this reminded me of something. Like, but she's like, I really like that poster. It's really nice use of letters. Where it's like the amount of hours I've spent with like Letraset or like sticker letters making flyers, again, for gigs that nobody came to. You're like, man, you pour so much time and energy to this for nothing.
There's there's also this thing where he's inviting her to go to the gig, and she's taking it as like a personal invite, where really he's just trying to get anyone on earth to go to this thing.
To go see his band.
As one would when they're gigging.
Yeah.
But also, like, these kids are like 16. It's such a big deal to be in a band when you're that age, you know, or to go see a band when you're that age even, or people like, you know, that are your contemporaries being in a band. Like, it all feels so, I don't know, adult in a way, you know?
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure.
We also do have the Murder, She Wrote reference right here, too, because when she's trying to establish with David, like, oh, but you are inviting me specifically, right? Like, you're saying everyone, but me more so. And that's when Orla was like, but Erin, Murder, She Wrote's on tonight. You never miss Murder, She Wrote. So it's funny that it's not just the fact that she has the poster, that's just like something written about the character is her obsession with this show.
Which makes me feel like it must be the writer was really into it as a kid, right? Because that seems like the kind of thing you'd pull from real life.
It's strange because that'd be embarrassing now, but I don't think it would be embarrassing back then. But it did embarrass her.
Yeah, it's weird that it embarrassed her. But I mean, if I think of shows of that same sort of thing, like when we were in 1994, we liked shows that ran like that. Like I remember watching MacGyver all the time, or like Quantum Leap all the time. And I wouldn't have found it embarrassing. You know what I mean? If someone was like, oh, are you going to go home and watch MacGyver? I'd be like, probably. I guess, yeah, I don't know. Like, it'd be a weird thing to be upset about. If they're like, what are you going to go home and miss American Gladiators? You'd be like, no, I don't want to miss American Gladiators. It'd be hard to miss that. What if Nitro's on this week?
Next scene, we have the girls at the bus stop. And this is when we first meet their other friends. Michelle's their other friend and her cousin. But Michelle, this is one of the other references, I guess, where you would know the time. But it's because she had just seen Pulp Fiction. She never says the movie by name.
But she just says she's going to call everybody motherfucker now.
Yeah, she's going to call everybody motherfucker. References that it was like some movie where they just keep shooting people and eating cheeseburgers, and it has the guy from Look Who's Talking.
She says the disco dancer from Look Who's Talking, which is from now on the only way I refer to John Travolta, aside from what I usually say, the guy from the Bad Grease movie.
Oh, jeez.
Sandy.
Is that the
I'm in a plastic bubble over here.
Great movie.
That is a great movie. It's very sad.
Doesn't get enough credit.
Also, I'd like to say
Bubble Boy.
All three Look Who's Talking movies are fantastic. The third one's not as good, but the first two especially are so good.
Is that the one with the talking baby?
It is. The third one's the one with the talking
Bruce
dogs,
Willis.
though, which switches
Roseanne
to
is in the
Danny
second
DeVito.
one.
Yeah. Bruce Willis is in the first one, then he reprises in the second, and then Roseanne plays the sister. And then dogs can talk in the next one.
And it's Danny DeVito, but I forget who the female dog is.
Is it Rhea Perlman? I'm just guessing.
I don't think it's Rhea Perlman.
No, it's a much more feminine voice.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. I think I was a little too young when that came
Kirstie
out.
Alley.
Oh, was
No,
it?
Kirstie Alley's the mother.
Oh, that's
Yeah, Kirstie Alley's the girlfriend who
it
becomes
was
his
Diane
wife.
Keaton.
Oh, Diane Keaton
Oh,
plays
okay.
the voice.
Interesting.
Oh, I didn't know
That makes sense now, yeah.
How
Star-studded.
come she doesn't get credit? You always know all these other people from Look Who's Talking, but no one ever mentions Diane Keaton.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that she's... Well, I think it's because of the third movie,
know what, Ferg,
right?
you're
And,
right.
The
And
third one really died a death. Nobody cared at that point.
Thinking back, Ferg, all the times we talk about the third Look Who's Talking movie, Look Who's Talking Now, I think we always snub Diane Keaton. You're right, now that I look back.
I know.
We always talk about
I
the
meant
scene
the
where the dog
franchise,
poops on the
damn it.
cab and they call him Rocks, but we never talk about Diane Keaton showing up.
And one thing I want to say before we move forward, because this is probably the most tangent heavy we've been, and we do need to dial it in, so we're not doing this until the wee hours of the night.
No,
But-
last week was the most tangent we've ever been.
This is getting there. But go back and listen to Big Bang Theory last week if you're just catching up with us for the first time. We referenced Boy in the Plastic Bubble with John Travolta. One of the saddest scenes in all of movie history is a girl, they're on the beach, and she gets dared to hold his hand through like the little plastic coffin that he has to sit in to watch the fireworks. And then like she just runs off because like she held his hand for a minute, and then he's just thinking it's a nice moment. He's like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "Oh, it was just a bet." And it's like, why'd you fucking tell him that? Why was that necessary? And then he starts freaking out, going, "Get me out of here! I don't want to be in here anymore." And it's so unnecessary. It made me very sad. People need to watch that movie. It gets slept on. People think of it as a joke, but Boy in the Plastic Bubble is a phenomenal movie. Go back.
I'd rather watch Bubble Boy.
Or the episode of Seinfeld where George deflates the plastic bubble boy's bubble.
Now, is this friend the one that you guys said is so much older than all the others?
No, it's the girl Claire, the one who's faster.
Claire, she's like our age. So in this episode,
I thought you meant this one.
No, she looks a little older because she's done up that way with a little bit more makeup
that
and
makes
stuff.
her look older. Yeah, if you see her without the makeup on, she looks her age.
Claire, who looks by far the youngest of them, is a year younger than me.
Which means, so this is 2018, so she would have been, what, 32?
4 years removed. She would have been like 31, 32 at the time.
31, 32 when she was playing a 16-year-old. That's insane.
And she doesn't even look 16. She looks like she's fucking 12.
Right, she looks like a little kid. In those situations, normally I'd be like, good genes, but also I don't want to be 32 and have people be like, I'm sorry, little boy. Like, that's not good either, you know?
Give me my smokes.
Yeah, my stogie.
Damn it, you beat me to it.
It wouldn't be an episode if we didn't reference the cigar smoking baby from fucking Roger Rabbit.
Baby Herman.
So
baby talk tonight between Look Who's Talking.
So we meet Michelle's cousin as well. So she's the one who's talking about Pulp Fiction, and her cousin James is. I feel like they never properly explained it. It was only explained through jokes all the time, but he apparently will also be attending this all-girls school with them.
I was going to ask, did I miss a joke? Like
they joked that it's because he's English.
Because he's English and they're in Northern Ireland, if they send him to the all-boys school, he's just going to get beaten up all the time. So they think it'll be safer to send him to the all-girls school.
The all-girls school.
There could definitely be truth to that, but you still can't just go to an all-girls school. It just doesn't work that way.
But like you guys, we'll get into it, but the gag for him this entire episode is that he really has to pee, and he's an all-girls school that has no men's room or boys room or whatever. That is torture. I'd never felt it when I watched the show the first couple times I saw it, but watching it now, being analytical, I was like, this poor kid, an entire day, that is nightmarish.
It's only because that character has no spine. Any normal person would just go pee somewhere.
Yeah, most people would leave
but he was
the
like
school
trying
and
to
go
figure out
pee
where
outside or something.
He tried being polite about it, and by the later scene, like right before they resolve that issue, you could see pain in his face. Well, he's just like he can't even talk to anyone anymore. He has to pee so bad, and we've all been there,
expresses
right?
it well.
Yeah, I've been there before.
I mean, I don't want to get into names, but when we were in school, there was a situation where someone had to pee so bad.
Oh my God.
and couldn't ask to go to the bathroom.
Oh no!
Oh,
the same person
spilled their soup.
I thought it was soup. I thought it was chicken soup. I was so confused.
Wait, am I confusing these two people, or is this the same person who stapled her finger in fourth grade?
No, you're confusing them.
Different person.
Yeah.
One starts with an R, the other starts with a G.
We won't,
I know who you're talking about.
We won't get into specific names, but essentially.
Although, side note, I remember.
Oh, come on. This can't be on the episode.
While we were watching Captain's Courageous.
Oh, the fucking movie about a guy getting his legs cut off and drowning in front of a child.
Yeah, that's way sadder than Boy in the Plastic Bubble.
Oh, the end of Captain's Courageous is very sad, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want to go with Manual.
I can't believe you pulled out a Captain's Courageous quote. Holy shit. The ghost of Spencer Tracy is haunting your house right now.
Holy shit.
Oh, I forgot the kid's name, though. He's like, it's okay, boy. It'll be all right, before he just drifts under the ocean. Oh, it's so sad.
Like, I have myself.
He's Dewey Cox. I've been halved. The wrong Spencer Tracy died.
Can I have that movie?
Here's an episode that if you like us, you'll enjoy this episode. But if you came here because you like Derry Girls, you're probably not listening to me say this by now.
Nope. You left at the first fucking joke about a movie from 1942 we started referencing.
After we meet these characters, everyone steps onto the bus. And they go all the way to the back, and basically what happens is Michelle, who was the one who was talking about Pulp Fiction earlier, who's definitely like a little bit of the edgier one of the group. They go up to what would be the first year kids, like, I don't know if they're not...
The freshmen, basically.
Yeah,
Freshmen.
essentially whatever the freshmen are. It's not high school, so whatever, but...
Yeah.
But they go over to them and the underclassmen and say, like, to get up, because that's where they said they want those seats. And most of the girls do get up, except for one, a girl named Tina. Michelle's like, what are you doing? And Tina's like, I'm not going anywhere. And she's like, all right, then we're going to have to fight then. We're going to beat you up. And she's like, okay, beat me up. And obviously, Michelle didn't have any actual intention to get physical, so now she's kind of trapped in the situation where she's like, oh, well, all right, after school then. She's like, okay, after school, beat me up. And this girl, like, Michelle does not know where to go from here because she's very, like, she wasn't expecting anyone to call her out. And we find out that Tina's sister is, like, a little older, but, like, a gigantic girl, like, probably the biggest girl in the school.
They call her a gorilla or something.
Yeah, they call her Gorilla later on.
Yeah, Big Bad Mandy. She does show up in other episodes in the first
They show
season.
her in this episode. You see her briefly. They look back at her. And then I wondered, was Tina's defense, because Tina was very, like, stern in her ways. And it was nice to see, right? She was very confident, didn't back down to these bullies. But was that only because she knows she has, like, the lifeline of the gigantic sister who can help her with her battles?
Yes.
Because she's young and she's very small and kind of mousy, right? So, like,
right.
I don't think she would have stood up to 4 people because her friends seemed like they didn't want to back her either. You know what I mean? Like, this was clearly I've got an older, tougher sister, which I feel like in those situations that always backfires on you when that person moves away and then you got to pay for, what you reaped.
Yeah. There was the moment too, like when they realize that Big Mandy's her sister, they're all like trying to back out of this. Tina tells them to fuck off and the girls all turn around and, head up to the front to find different seats. And Aaron's like, well, that was humiliating.
I love the just realness of that, right? Like, at least to have the wherewithal to be like, that was humiliating. That did not work out the way we wanted it to.
Now, I said this to you guys before we started recording. Aaron overmugs at all times. And, like, it was so distracting to me. Was it something that you guys noticed when you were watching it?
I did.
Yeah, she does it in every episode. I think it's just like a character choice. Like, it's not something she does in regular life. Like, she's not like when you see her in other stuff.
But is that bad acting or is that a character choice? Because
I think
she's
it's a character
overly
choice.
expressive. Like,
I think she's a really good actor. Again, I've seen all these episodes. I think that she's a very good actor.
It just felt very unnatural. That was the thing with me. It's like people don't express that way, like not that extreme. So it took me.
But this is also a very unnatural time for people too, which I think it kind of. I mean, like, I get that it's extreme the way she does it, but this is also playing when you're at the most unnatural of your entire life, being like 14, 15, 16 years old.
I think the actress has noticed that there was no actual comedy in this show, so she's like, maybe I can make funny faces and make people laugh.
Everyone's going to disagree with you. This show is very funny.
No, it's not.
We'll see. We'll see how this pans out.
From there, we get to another scene on the bus where they're all just kind of sitting there, and you see Claire, like, trying to hold up with this fast, and she's watching someone eat, and you can see, like, how much it's torturing her. And she says that it's supposed to be a 24-hour fast, and, almost 23 hours to go. So she just like, what she must have ate right before she met them. She probably had breakfast and then decided to fast. If she still has 23 hours on the clock.
Yeah, what's
a
with
rookie
that?
move? She should have started at night, right before bed, and then you would have knocked a bunch of hours out.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's like the doctor thing, right? Where they're like, you can't eat for X amount of hours before your surgery or whatever. You eat the absolute latest, or not surgery, but necessarily a trip where to do blood checks or whatever. You eat the absolute latest you possibly can before you go to sleep, so you can have as many hours not eaten while you're sleeping.
And the conversation's continuing on about, like, all the stuff about the Ethiopians before, and they're going back and forth a little bit, and that's when the bus stops because soldiers need to climb on board, and, like, they have guns, and this was really not explained at all. It was a very odd scene to happen in the middle of this funny sitcom.
Well, I think that's, again, explaining that everything's funny, but their lives are interrupted by things like, these checkpoints and these bombs and having to check for... Because she even says, like, should I tell them there's an incendiary device in my knickers? Because they're, like, going on to make sure people aren't smuggling bombs.
See, I think, like, that's the thing is, like, you can have jokes. Like,
there are jokes, but this is, I think, the juxtaposition of that to prove
like, there's jokes in, like, Straight Outta Compton. It's not considered a comedy.
There's more jokes in this than Straight Outta Compton.
Hey,
and I love
you know,
Straight Outta Compton. Don't get
There's
me
a good
wrong.
amount of jokes in that movie, but
Hey, listen. Those guys that went on the bus that were looking for bombs should have just found the big one that was this show.
Boom.
You worked hard on that one, huh?
boom goes the dynamite.
But what I thought was weird is they're on there looking for, like, you know, probably anything inconspicuous. They don't know it's a all-girl school bus, and then there's a dude there. They don't stop and question him.
An English dude. They should have pulled him off
yeah.
immediately. That's a great point. Yeah, you would have think that in an all-girls school bus, an English boy in Northern Ireland maybe would have been suspect.
Especially one that's like looking around, looking nervous the whole time too.
I will say, though, later on, one of the girls thinks he's a girl.
I was going to say, maybe they just confused him.
So maybe they just did too,
Yeah.
like, because they looked at him on the bus and didn't say anything. So maybe it's like that other girl who's like, I wish I could wear my hair that short, but I can't. It's like, he's a boy. What are you talking
Yeah, that's
about?
it. Actually, right from there, that's actually the next scene because that's Jenny who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And this is when they all get to the school. That's when we first meet Jenny. They're all kind of in this orientation type thing that's in the gym at first.
Jenny's the one who dimes them out, right?
Yes.
Because the other girl says, I'm no snitch.
Oh, no. It was Jenny 100%.
It was, okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't-
Mandy's
I just-
sister
I wasn't
didn't
clear
snitch.
on that.
But Jenny did because they get in this big argument.
What
here.
is Jenny's role in this school? Because I feel like that's not like
I think the
specifically
equivalent of a
explained, but you
hall
can tell
monitor.
like the way she walks up and greets them.
I think it's like a class president.
Yeah, she like greets
I
everybody.
took it as the equivalent of a hall monitor. I said that, but I was frozen a minute ago, so I'm sure you didn't hear it.
No, I heard
We're
it.
Maybe.
frozen
that helps.
today.
But also because she's leading the assembly, I think that maybe she's got some sort of like...
That's the thing. She has something to do with the school. Like she has some sort of a role there.
I say it's a class president or like maybe like a model student or like, you know, one of those like goody two shoes positions.
Something that none of us ever would have
I was
been
going to
when we were
say
in school.
something that none of us have applied for. That's why we don't know what the position's called.
Unless, of course, you're referring to prom king.
Yes.
What
Which-
about NFT Ape King?
You're not that either. How many NFT apes do you own?
0.
The dejected tone of that was so wonderful.
You're going to shatter his world, man.
Well, it's just you can't call yourself the king of it, you know.
Yeah, king's extensive, yeah.
I feel like if I refer to myself as like the king of foreign languages,
Well, you did have Muzzy while we were growing up.
je suis la jeune vie.
That's right. Jay's speaking French right now, but he's not French.
He's American.
No, actually, my heritage says I'm Italian.
He looks more like Muzzy.
Les filles, le goblins.
Well, you're eating popcorn.
So, this is the
Popcorn,
conversation.
by the
though.
way, I just want to go back to popcorn is the funniest American food of all time. I don't
I'll
know
find
why
you the
that is so
article I read.
comical to
I
me.
read an article about it where popcorn was
So funny
specifically
about
mentioned.
delicious popcorn.
I love popcorn.
I don't think of it as an American food, but hey, I live
is
in America.
corn.
I don't know better, right? So
Hold on. Honey, is popcorn an American thing? Okay. Yeah. Like when you think of America, do you think of popcorn?
I
There
don't
you
know. They
go.
use corn tortillas down south. You know?
And there's, I mean, I've driven
Not
through
corn.
The only one
hours
with
of
corn.
cornfields in Canada.
I'm saying popcorn could have originated there. You never know.
Yeah, but I mean, but corn is such like an American thing, though.
I
Oh,
think
you
of
mean
Mexico
maize?
before I think of us, but I guess we have so much cornfield too.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
there's tons of. I mean, North America as a
Midwest-
continent has tons of corn. Basically, it's in the whole of us. I don't know how much of it's in Europe. That's
We
more
can
the
only-
wheat area.
We can only talk about corn for so long.
Yeah, let's get off the corn stuff.
Speaking of corns,
Wow.
speaking of corns, you guys know how many corns are in these feet right here?
Okay.
So, anyways, yeah. So this is the conversation where Jenny does think that he's one of the girls of the school, like we were saying earlier, and I guess that's just because why would you think that there's a boy at the school, right? It's not. It's an all girls school, so I guess she's
You just assume,
assuming.
yeah.
Maybe she has more masculine features or something.
Well, I learned in school when you assume you make an ass out of you and me.
I was told that by almost every teacher I've ever had, like as if they all wrote that line.
I like that that's what all teachers told you, and mine always just told me if you shake it more than once, you're playing with it. We had such a weird, different experience in school.
What teachers did you talk to with your dick out?
We've talked about this previously.
Actually, guys, I want to go back and completely pretend that didn't just happen. But when Jenny's talking, because we were just talking about it earlier, but now that I'm actually reading the transcript a little bit, I'm catching it. She says, this is a bit awkward, but part of my role as the prefect is welcoming the first year students. So that is her role. So we were debating back and forth as to what it was. So prefect is what she's referring to herself as.
And
do we want to do a quick
the actual definition of prefect? Or are you texting somebody while you're recording?
No, I was looking it up, but it auto-corrected to perfect.
Perfect attendance.
One of our favorite wrestlers in the 80s, Mr. Prefect.
Oh, here it is. One sec. British. In some schools, a senior student authorized to enforce discipline.
Okay, so there is a position of power.
Okay, so it makes a little sense why she is the way she is.
So it's kind of like a hall monitor.
As long as it ain't that damn dean of discipline, right, guys?
Oof.
Or Keith
Or Paddlin' Peggy.
That's battling.
Jasper in The Simpsons is the best paddler of all time.
Not
You better believe that's
Gordo's
paddling.
joke. Not laughing at Gordo's joke.
Paddling a
That's
canoe.
But in any event, Jenny is, when she's saying this to her, she's basically referring to all the stuff that happened on the bus. And she's like, I have to let, the nuns know about this. And they're calling her like a rat. Well, she's getting back and forth with Michelle. Michelle, the one who caused all this trouble to begin with. And Michelle's saying it was all a joke anyways. It's like, oh, we're going to beat you up, but like in a jokey way. And Jenny's like, right, yeah, well, the thing is, that's not actually funny. Like at all. And Claire's like, well, humor's subjective, really. So
Just like this show, only one of us finds it funny.
I was waiting when you started using the quotes. I was like, it's either Ferg or Gordo was going to jump in on this one.
I think that line could have been funny, the humor is subjective one, but it wasn't delivered well. So even like when they had a joke, it wasn't done well.
I didn't think that line was terribly poorly delivered, but it's not a standout by any means. And there's so much going on. It's a lot of fast dialogue. So it's easy to have jokes be lost in it.
It's a very dialogue-heavy show.
Yeah, so like last week, right, we did Big Bang Theory, and these are completely different types of shows. So whether or not this is a sitcom, which we could debate, and my personal opinion is not so much, but regardless, this is shot more cinematically, this style of show, which is kind of a newer style for a lot of things. Whereas last week, Big Bang Theory, a more typical 3-camera sitcom. And a show like...
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, speaking of that, like Big Bang Theory, this show could have used a laugh track.
No, it can't. You can't use a laugh track on a cinematic show. It would be so awkward. It has to be that kind of show to use it.
Yeah, I don't think it would work on this. But you needed it on the Big Bang Theory, a TV show where literally nothing was funny.
But, to go back, to complete my point, the Big Bang Theory, although fills it with way too many laugh tracks, pauses for the joke, right? So you can, you absorb the humor, right? Like anything that's said gives you a second to process it. Here, everything's so quick that it's very easy to miss the joke. And then for us, where it's not our common dialect, it's, you're getting past the accents and stuff. And maybe for those, living in Northern Ireland who that accent's a little bit more easier to process, like fast.
Maybe I'm alone here, but I didn't think they were that hard to understand. I understood.
I didn't either.
Like 99% of what they said.
It wasn't that I couldn't, but like I had to pay attention really close, and little things would escape me during fast dialogue. It wasn't like it was ineligible. They're speaking the same language as us, so it wasn't that I couldn't hear it at all.
I thought it was interesting that we had pulled up earlier that this show was, although Ferg, you tried to hide the fact that the article was, all these people can't understand what they're saying on this show. And then the subtext of that was like, but everybody loves it. So it wasn't like a bad review. But like, I thought that was weird too, because we watched this and the first time we watched it, no subtitles. I feel like we got most of it. It seems like you got most of it. Nick, you got most of it, right?
Yeah, I really didn't have much trouble with it, honestly.
I mean, I'm being hyperbolic.
I think the three of us watch a lot of foreign shows, though. So
I've also hung out with a lot of actual Irish people, but I think they did a good job of
I think that helps, yeah.
They did a good job of not drowning you in their specific proprietary dialect either. Like, I think they knew that if they want to do well, they're going to hit places outside of Ireland that are going to enjoy the show. So they didn't do too much of it. Like, the UK office did a lot of it. Like, they used a lot of terminology that I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah, I feel like I was more confused by the UK office the first time I watched it than
and I don't think this was that hard at all. I think, it was fine.
I just had a hard time understanding it. I mean, but again, that's just me. That's more of a Gordo thing than anything that they actually did. Like I said, my ears don't really work that well, and it's really hard for me to discern that accent.
Well, I think what I like about a lot of sitcoms is how mindless it is to watch them at times, and we've talked about that with older shows. And something like this, between the way it's shot and the way they speak, and then the fact that there is an accent, you have to really be focused on it when you're watching it. You can't kind of be casually doing something and have this on in the background. You have to be committed to watching it. So there's that element. You have to absorb it in a totally different way that you can Everybody Loves Raymond or something like that.
I would love to hear, though, from somebody who was from, like, Northern Ireland. You know, if somebody from Derry reached out to us and said, I feel the same way about Full House, right? Like, I enjoy Full House, but I can't leave that on mindlessly in the background because I have to pay attention to the
That's
accents,
fair, yeah.
right? If it's the exact... I'm sure it flips the other way, you know?
Oh, what's so hard to understand?
And she's like, I really like this show, but I hate that Dave Coulier.
I'm trying to think of a show that's Southern. Like a Southern accented.
Country Comfort.
Country Comfort, yeah.
Country Comfort, which is the worst show we've ever covered aside from Homeboys in Outer Space.
Or this.
No, that's California Dreams.
California Dreams is a great show.
They definitely watch a lot more American content than we watch Irish content.
That's true. Our stuff is exported way more than stuff from other countries is imported here.
No, I'll give you that. I
mean, the only other Irish thing that I can think of watching was Trainspotting.
Is that Irish?
I thought so.
It's Danny Boyle, right? I thought that was English.
You might be right. My bad. So then, this is the only thing.
That's a great documentary you can watch called Shell Shock Rock.
Was Father Ted Irish?
Father Ted is Irish, yeah.
I've seen that.
I don't know what that is.
It's
know it's the same creator.
It's an actual sitcom.
I just know this is the biggest hit since Father Ted, according to the internet.
To go back
to that is
Father
coming.
Ted. Oh, also, Gordo, should we mention our debate here, or should we want to save that to the end for the episode picks? I'll save it to the end.
We'll save it to the end.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm curious. What debate?
We had a little contest thing. You were there for it. Well, I just want to go over it in the episode after at the end.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
And real quick, just to close out that conversation between Michelle and Jenny, there's a point where Michelle says she calls her sugar tits, and then flips her off.
Mull this over. I love when you say something and everybody laughs, and I'm like, oh, it's not a sitcom, is it?
But that's just, like, I view sitcom very differently.
I'm laughing at the word sugar tits, not her joke.
It's just a thing where the way I perceive a sitcom, there's more to it than just having a joke and a few laughs in it. I think it has to be comedy focused, and I don't see this as something that is focused on the comedic elements of, like, what's going on.
Like
it just so happens that there's jokes inside.
Much like Norseman, yeah. I would say this is a good poll for the Instagram.
I think Norseman's a little more jokey.
Norseman's definitely like more childish humor.
We have something that toy
Yeah.
the line. I think it's definitely more of a sitcom than this, but like Kim's Convenience kind of toys that line a little bit because the way it's shot like this, like that more like cinematic style. I think any
Homeboys
show
in Outer Space.
No,
Let's never mention that.
I think
fucking
any show that
again,
we
please.
cover in general, though, when it doesn't follow that old sitcom like structure, the way it's shot, it always feels so different that it's perceived not as a sitcom all the time, even when it's a comedy. But that's a whole different debate. There's no clear-cut answer. But to go on, Jenny now, after this conversation, we flash forward a little bit, and she's having like this presentation that she's giving to all the other students, where she has a friend of hers like watering like this pail to explain like growth, and they pull out a flower. It's a very weird demonstration, especially to have a kid doing it to her fellow students.
It almost reminds me of the scene in Addams Family Values.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Like where they're doing all the Thanksgiving pageant. Like it's just so over the top and the kids are too old to be doing it that you just expect like, eat me.
Yeah, I am a turkey. Eat me.
I love this is where you first get introduced to the sort of head nun of the school, who just has the most dry delivery where she was like, I think there's some very nice sentiment there. Also, her name is Sister George Michael, which is pretty amazing.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't realize that.
You hear them call her Sister George a bunch, and I think you're supposed to maybe assume that her name is like Susan George, but it's actually George Michael. So I just love that they threw that weird reference in there because you have to have faith.
Oh, so they copied Arrested Development.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't think they were maybe making the Arrested Development joke as much as they're making a Faith and George Michael is a big star. And
there was something about there's something about her that was very familiar. Obviously I don't think I know her from anything, but I don't know, something about her face was just I couldn't place it.
That's just a type when they cast nuns in movies and stuff. There's always the big, mean, angry nun that's just like that.
Yeah, that could be a lot of it.
Like the Blues Brothers nun.
The Miss Trunchbull.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But she has such a good dry delivery to her where she has one of the other standout lines of the episode that's coming up shortly. She
has like a speech at this point. She's following up and she's addressing all the students. And she even raises attention to James, Michelle's cousin, who's the one boy in the school, and makes it known that he's there and that he is the first boy to ever attend this school. And she says that it's because of, his safety because he's English. And it's taken as a joke, but it sounds like this is the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I think it's like the legitimate reality that is what would be if that kid was in that real situation at that time, And
she says she doesn't want any repeats of the Mr. Mullen affair, which was a student teacher who, I guess, two of the students, they were the fourth years, which I assume just like the oldest, grade there.
I think that's like a senior, right? It's probably 17.
They tied him to monkey bars and started to dry ride him, is what was said.
Dry ride.
Oh, I thought they said gyrate on him.
It sounded like, it did sound like gyrate.
I think they said they started gyrating him.
Well, I'm going by the script.
But you got the script there. Okay.
But no, Joe, it's super easy to understand everything. So, so maybe it's gyrate.
Hey, I wrote gyrate. I'm sticking with gyrate.
I think
I was
either
born a
one
snake
works.
handler, I'll die a snake handler.
I think both work, right? Essentially, we're talking the same thing no matter what.
Yeah. Two ways to skin a cat.
And
dry rubbed was the real word?
Yeah, either way, it's
dry
just a
ride.
play on horny schoolgirls with one male in the place. Yeah. So whichever way you say it.
I mean,
it's a pretty simple trope, yeah.
Think of how not funny that is if it's flipped and it's an all-boys school and it was a girl student teacher and they did that, like, how that goes from being like a funny little side note to like something very serious and not at all funny.
Although I guess that goes to show that even in 4 years since this show started, like you probably couldn't make that joke even that way, right? Like there's been just such a different way of looking at sort of stuff where like you can't make that joke, and maybe they
you could make that joke, you just couldn't flip it around.
Right, but I think that's the issue though, is people wouldn't, because if you can't flip it around, then it becomes a different thing, right? But I think that also if you're landing it in 1994, you give yourself different leeway because you're playing within the rules of that time, like what kids would have said or would have done at that time period.
I want to bring up, from that point, we get into like this like little, we're probably around midway through the episode, but it flashes the title screen again. And I've noticed this in other non-American shows that we've covered. I
noticed that was strange.
I think that's just the way it's done, because I remember even back when we did Red Dwarf, there was something like that too, and thinking it was strange then. And I was wondering if that's just commonplace to kind of have that mid-episode break like that reintroduces you.
They did that a bunch in Danger 5 as well. Which is
so maybe it's just something we just don't do here, but is more common in like all the other like country shows. And I do need to start tracking that more as we cover more.
Yeah, as we get to a more wider base of shows from different countries.
Do you think that maybe this was in between like time slots, like maybe like an 8:45 to like 9:15 time slot, and it was the top of the hour? Or are we reading too much into it?
I don't know. I've never been. I don't really know how their like TV structure even goes.
Is that something they do?
Yeah, or are there commercials set differently than ours where we get like 3 or 4 commercial breaks and maybe they just get one big one in the middle, like when you're watching like something on a streaming service?
When I was in Ireland, I didn't watch too much TV. So
as I would hope not.
Good.
Like go outside.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what'd you do in Ireland? Man, just hung out in the hotel, watched some TV.
Although I will say, last time I was in Canada, I was really mad because all the shows in the History Channel were way better than the ones we had. And then they ended up all on Netflix, and I was very excited.
So they were about actual history and not like aliens building temples?
No, they're all about weirdos who make cars, but they were just better than the American ones.
Although I do like me some ancient aliens.
So anyways, there's the following scene, we see everyone at the, like, kind of like a locker area. Everyone's sitting around. And essentially, really, the big thing that happens here is that we hear over the loudspeaker that all of them are called into the office. And
did this remind anybody of the time, the day after Columbine, when we all walked into school?
Yep.
That's immediately what I thought of. It's the only time I
Yeah.
could think of when a whole group of us got called at the same time.
there's a
Which I've
dark
talked
pivot,
to so
but yeah.
many people since then. And that's like an epidemic across the United States, is anybody who was like slightly outside the standard got called to the office the day after Columbine.
Yeah.
That was a fun day.
Yeah.
Nothing, especially because we're from a small town. We knew everybody our entire lives. Nothing like them being like 11 people called and said they're afraid you're going to kill.
It was like
the
it was
kids.
like, you want to talk a
Fuck
sitcom
off.
moment. I remember there was a moment where they were like, it was like 11 parents have called the school so far. And then like the vice principal popped his head and went 12. Like, it was like, oh wow, what the fuck is going on?
I was really glad they were keeping account. But anyway, just to put a button on that, obviously we weren't doing anything or planning anything. It was just anybody who was considered not, I don't know, quote unquote, normal, right? Like these kids would have been probably called in for that too, because they were like
It
the
was the
outcast
freaks
kids or
and
whatever.
geeks.
It was the freaks and geeks corridor, right?
All
Yeah.
those freaky deaky kids, yeah. But well, in this case though, it was for specific reasons for everything that happened on the bus.
Yeah, they did actually do something for this one.
It's funny though. She called them all by name, and she said, "And the English boy."
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
I like that they call him the wee English boy so often too. I just love that so much. It just rolls off the tongue.
I like that right before they go in, it's Claire says to them, look, whatever happens in there, we have to stick together, okay? We have to back each other up. And then immediately after that, when we get into the scene, it starts with Claire going, I had nothing to do with it. It wasn't me. You know, I just want to make that clear. It was Michelle. It was all Michelle. I'm not going to get in trouble for anything I didn't do. If anyone deserves to be punished, it should be Michelle. And even like the sister was like, well, I think it's safe to say that I lost a little bit of respect for you there, Claire.
That's the other line. That fucking line kills me. She delivers it so well. It is so dry that it almost reminds me of the scene in Billy Madison. It's like, I award you no points and may God have mercy on your soul. Like, it's just so like, how dare you do that to us in this situation?
Now, here's something that I've been dying to bring up, but I had to save it for live in the episode. So while they're talking, you get a perspective of all the girls when Claire's saying this from the viewpoint of the nun. So you see it like a little bit of the desk, and then you see them facing her talking. There's a picture on the nun's desk. And if you guys want to go right now to our group chat, check it right now. There's a photo in the corner that I am almost positive is an autographed photo of Patrick Duffy.
Oh, sexy Frank.
I swear to you, I did not edit this photo. This is
Does-
100% a screen cap.
It does look like it.
That
you
does
sure
look
it's
like
not David-
sexy
Are you
Dallas
sure?
era
Are you
Patrick
sure it's
Duffy.
not David Hasselhoff?
I don't know. I even tried referencing. It
No,
could
this
be
looks
Da-
more like Patrick Duffy.
It could be David Hasselhoff because of like his ties to Europe. But it looks
he's
more like
big in
Patrick
Europe,
Duffy.
and it looks like he's in a bathing suit because it's
Well, I
Baywatch.
think
But
it
I
is
found
from,
all those pictures of Patrick Duffy dressed just like that, though.
From
'cause
Man
he
from
had to be in
Atlantis.
swimsuits on Dallas.
Man from Atlantis. That's
Man
what a lot
from
of that's
Atlantis.
from.
There you go. I mean, 1994. Is that the same year that
I'm
Step by Step
attempting
came out, or
a,
year
cross,
after?
a cropped reverse image search. Give me a sec.
Yeah, I tried looking it up and I couldn't find that specific photo. But even when I tried referencing his signature looks pretty similar to the one in that photo.
Oh, there's a
Horny
signature.
Frank?
I could only see the picture.
It's very small in the corner, but as I'm watching, I'm like, is that Patrick Duffy?
Oh man, the patron saint of this podcast. Also, Horny Frank Patrick Duffy t-shirts coming soon.
Yes, we are going to be working on that. And I tried to find like just Googling around and be like, nun's desk photo and see if there's any like, hey, what was that type thread? I couldn't find anything in the moment. Yeah, I even tried checking around and seeing if I could find like message boards where people talked about what this photo was, but I couldn't find anything.
No one's that into Horny Frank, huh?
It sounds like Sister George Michaels is.
Why didn't you check the Reddit? I have the exact pictures on there.
Is it? Is it
Circle.
Patrick Duffy?
I just got the pop-up that says you want to open the app.
I wonder if it's maybe like an Irish star we don't know or something.
I'd be so bummed because I was so confident it was
It says,
Patrick
I
Duffy.
think it's Daniel O'Connell, Irish singer. But this is what they think. And then someone says it looks like the Hoff. So no one confirms, but
I mean, Patrick Duffy, obviously from Irish descent. That's a very
Reverse image
Irish
search
name.
doesn't work. It's way too pixelated.
What's the name of the singer, Ferg?
Daniel O'Donnell.
All right, I'm gonna look that up for later.
You have to look up shirtless pics of David O'Donnell. I'm gonna go with Patrick Duffy. I want to believe that
On
to
my
be
work
true.
computer, but I'm just gonna say it's Horny Frank. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I got the actual picture.
it is.
It's right. I'm sending it.
Damn it.
It's not Patrick Duffy. When it's a clear big picture, it's very much not a sexy Patrick Duffy.
Yeah, that is.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Turns out you didn't search too hard. It took me 2 minutes.
This guy is not nearly as sexy as Patrick Duffy.
I was doing my notes. Yeah, this guy isn't. I mean, I can see like how he'd play like a
Look
stand-in
at the
for
pair
Patrick
of
Duffy.
jeans on this fella, though. Wowie Maui.
I love the cotton white socks with the dress shoes.
He must be obscure if Joe doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, I've got no idea who this guy is. But yeah, the patent loafers with the white cotton socks and the acid wash jeans and no shirt. What
And
a
it's
weird
pleated.
look.
And the jeans are pleated too.
They are
Funny
pleated
thing
jeans also.
about this no shirt picture is that he has zero muscle tone. It's like, why are you shirtless? You're not
Looks like
showing
he's gonna
anything.
be
else.
It's like a dad at the pool or something, right? Like not somebody who goes around being like, huh? Anybody into it?
He looks like he could be related to Eric Bischoff.
My God, that's Papa Bushpig.
And we'll have to throw this picture on social media. So people
Yeah,
know
we'll
what
put it
we're
up on
talking
our
about.
stories at the very least.
But now I also too might take this picture and make pins or something that say S1E1 on them.
That's also possible. But you need one that isn't like watermarked that says like salami photo, like the one that was just sent to us.
It
just says-
salami photo.
It just says
Alan
not
Newman.
horny Frank.
Copyright not Patrick Duffy, 1994.
But to go back to this conversation now, we find out that it is in fact because of the whole situation with that girl earlier in the day, and she's in the room with them now. And Michelle's saying like, we didn't threaten her. We're not stupid. Big Mandy's her sister. Like she's a half fucking gorilla.
Also, two things we missed here. You didn't mention it earlier, but they continue on the process of James trying to use the bathroom. And he asks if he can use the woman's room, and they tell him no because he's a fucking pervert, which I thought was a
Oh
really
yeah,
funny line.
right. I'm sorry. Yeah, there wasn't
And
a
then
lot
in
that
the
happened.
scene,
in
he
that
asks if he can use the
teachers.
staff bathroom, and they just flat out say no to him too.
I think it's
Like
in
this is
scene, right?
escalating. I feel like you don't want to miss the fact that it's just getting worse and worse for this poor kid.
And as they're going through this, like, Tina's like, I didn't even report them. Like, it's not even, like, I'm not the reason that they're here. Because it was basically like, I need to do something about this, right? But Tina's defending them in a way by saying, I don't even think this is a big enough deal for this. She's like, okay, well, I guess then we can just move past this then. Like, and the girls apologize for the misunderstanding. And the sister's like, well, do you accept their apology? And she's like, no. Which I actually really respected, the whole, no, I'm not accepting their apology. And I think that was a better resolve to the, like, fine, whatever. Like, yeah, I don't think this is a big deal, and I'm not a rat, but no, I don't accept their apology because fuck them. Like, that's so relatable.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, good for her.
I think it's one of the most relatable lines from like a kid in this whole episode. Where it's just like, it's so defiant, but it's also so sticking to your guns, which is such the mark of being like 15. Where you're like, I'm not going to do that thing you tell me to do, but also trying to be like your own person at the same time, you know?
The sister's like, well, I'm going to have to do something then. And this is when it flies to the fact that now they're all in detention. They're all in this room and they're being watched over by this nun who's very old and she's reading, I don't know, the Bible or something. And
imagine being a nun who's 97 and you're like, well, it's Tuesday. I must read the Bible again. All right, so now they're in detention, and you can tell that things are getting bad, and everybody's escalating, right? So James still has to go to the bathroom, and he's starting to, like, finally crack.
He looks in pain at this point.
He looks... The great acting, because
he does a good job of it.
Genuinely feel for this dude at this point.
Do you think
say
that
this
they
too.
made him not pee?
Like method
To,
acting?
like,
I don't
method
know.
acting?
He
I was
did a
going to
good
say, I don't
job
think
of-
they can make him, but he may have made that choice himself.
He like
Go full
expresses
Brando.
it in like a good way that was, because it could easily be acted in a way where you're overdoing it and you're being too jumpy and like over embellishing it, but he did it in a very realistic way that you
don't
felt
want to
for
move.
him. Like
Yeah,
you
you
know
don't wanna
exactly
move.
what he's going through at that moment.
Yep.
I mean,
Like, it hurts.
he's in a school of all girls. He doesn't want to be the one guy that also peed his pants.
Right, yeah, like he's also in this weird situation, and it's his first day, and he's just moved to this country. Like everything is totally weird to him, right? This might be the kid who pisses, the one boy who comes to school and then pees his pants. That's a tough first day.
That's no way to get gyrated.
You will not get gyrated.
His options are be the pervert that went in the girls' room on the first day, be the guy who peed his pants, or I don't even know what the last option would be.
Well, he picks the last option, and I think it's probably the best option for him not being ostracized by other people, or be the least ostracizing you'd get.
Yeah.
And then, of course, now we get the diary becomes the final time it becomes the foil for the group.
Yeah, because Orla's reading it like,
no, it's not
again.
the final time, because it happens when they're in the office with the parents, too, at the end.
Oh, shit, you're right. Yeah, they bring it up again.
So, yeah, so Orla's reading the diary again, and Erin's getting pissed about it, and it becomes like this loud argument between the two of them, because Orla says that she has to read it. She's doing her book report on it. So now she goes to, like, Erin goes to grab it from her. So now the sisters gets up and she's like, what's going on here? And when she finds out what's going on, takes the diary. She has to confiscate it. And she sits down and just starts like reading the diary.
I saw
Erin's
that
like,
coming.
Yeah, well, I don't think I did, to be honest with you. I would have felt that coming if it was a sitcom, because then it would be like more of like a sitcom.
Louise. Did it get a laugh though? Because it got a laugh.
I saw it coming.
I wouldn't say it got a laugh, but
You don't think you didn't get a laugh out of her taking the diary and then reading it?
no. But you know what I've come to realize, honestly, as we've done this show, TV can get you to laugh out loud far more than it does to me. It's even when I love a show, I don't like typically laugh when watching something.
Yeah, I don't like laugh out loud.
True.
Like I don't lol IRL.
You're the worst.
Do you lol while watching TRL? I told you Carson Daly was hilarious.
So then but the next thing she does is the other girl's putting on makeup and she steals her lip gloss or her lipstick.
She takes that from her, and Claire's going crazy because she's so hungry, and she's like watching like the nun has like a sandwich out, and like everything's coming to a head. James is saying that this is disgraceful. He should have access to a lavatory. He said, "What about his civil rights?"
He's not wrong this entire time.
But yeah, when the sister
He also wasn't involved in the bus thing. He sat at the front, and they were all in the back.
James is literally the epitome of like guilty by association. He has done nothing wrong this entire episode.
When the sister takes Michelle's lipstick away, she puts it in her own bag, and Michelle's like, "Shouldn't you be putting that in the confiscated box?" And she's like, "Quiet." Michelle's upset because apparently that color has been discontinued. But what do you do in that moment, right? If I'm not a makeup wearer, but if you're like committed to a color and they don't make it anymore, like, yeah, you can savor that one as long as you want, but it's going to go away. So you're going to have to move on anyways.
I compare it to when they discontinued my vape juice, and I just had to find another cereal flavor.
Yeah.
You have to find another flavor to make you be that guy that you walk down the street and you're like, is somebody cooking cereal? Is somebody cooking Fruity Pebbles right now? And then we talked about this before too, though, like the idea of like, I think maybe we talked about it in Australia, maybe it was for Danger 5 or something, where like cigarettes are like $25 a pack now, where you're like, if you want to get people to quit, that's what you do. But otherwise, people are either going to adapt to something else, like vaping or something, right? If you make cigarettes crazy expensive, more people will vape or quit, right? If they stop making your favorite type of soda or whatever, you just move on to another one. Like people don't usually like lose. I had an entire category of food taken away from me in my life. You just got to pivot.
Pivot? That's from Friends.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Our first episode.
You mean our first episode?
Yeah. The first episode of people who do first episodes.
That line is from that episode?
No, that line is not.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I've only ever seen 2 episodes of Friends.
No, that's like one of the more famous lines to come out of the show, though.
Is that what he says to his monkey and his duck?
The monkey's name is Marcel. I don't know the duck's name.
And it's a chicken and a duck.
Chicken and a duck.
Ross has a monkey.
Yeah, but yes, but...
Oh, wait, no, I've seen 3 episodes of Friends because I did randomly one time see an episode where Joey gets on an STD ad in the subway. And that episode was very funny.
Funny enough, there's actually an episode of Friends where Joey gets a part because he has to pee really bad. And Jeff Goldblum is the guy hiring for the part.
Jeff Goldblum's the toilet. It's a very
That's the
controversial
sequel to
episode.
The Fly that nobody asked for.
Yeah. So as these girls are all talking to each other during the detention, they look over and they see that the sister is face down on the diary. She says, look, your boring fucking diary sent her to sleep. And Michelle goes to take her lipstick back.
Everybody knew she was dead, right?
Not at this point.
I'm saying every one of you knew she was dead at this point.
No, not at this point.
No?
I knew the first time I watched it, yeah.
Second, I saw it. I go, she died.
When
No,
she
I thought-
lifted her head up and go, look, she's sleeping with her eyes open. I
a great
fucking
line.
laughed out loud very hard.
That was the thing, because now we've hit like chaos, because Michelle gets up and she's like, well, if she's asleep, I'm going to go take my lipstick back. And while she's doing that, this is like everyone's moment to finally break, right? Everything that they've been holding in.
Erin's like halfway out the window.
Yeah, she wants to
because
go to
she wants
David's
the
show.
concert. We forgot to mention that.
Claire steals
The
this
gig.
fucking nun's half-eaten sandwich because she wants to eat so bad because she hasn't eaten, 6 hours maybe? Hasn't
And then
been
she
that
yells
long.
at Erin. She's like, don't look at me. I'll give you your 2 pounds back.
And James runs and finds a bin and just starts taking a piss, like right in front of everybody. Like that one surprised me the most because you obviously don't see his front or anything, but he's just sitting there pissing right in that bucket. And I thought he would have at least hid somewhere and did it, but it was kind of right where everyone was
There
standing.
was a closet in that room. He could have went and peed in the
Yeah,
closet.
there was a way around it. But yeah, Orla's like grabs the nun's head, which is a weird reaction to this whole thing, right? I could see her wanting to pull the diary out from under her so she could keep it, but
No, they didn't. They go up to get her lipstick back because she stole it.
Michelle went to get her lipstick, but Orla's just playing with her head for the fun of it. That
Orla's
has
just a
nothing to do with-
weirdo.
Like when Michelle tries to steal her lipstick back, touching the nun would make it worse because you risk her waking up.
Yeah, but that was the whole reason why they got up was for her lipstick, and that's when they
No,
both-
Michelle independently gets up because she wants her lipstick, and that's everyone else's opportunity to do what they want.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That lit the fuse. That
Yeah,
made them
exactly.
all
Yeah, but
start.
that became the gunshot to the race that made everybody just go wild. But yeah, you see her holding like the head up, and Nick, like you said, her eyes are open, and I think that's the moment where it really kicks in. Yeah, she's not asleep.
I do love now too, and one of the other nuns, Sister George, walks in now and catches them all. And I think one of the best scenes of this whole episode is James stops peeing for like a second to turn around and see what's happening.
starts.
It just starts again because he can't.
Yeah.
He's got so much pee in him still. I think that's such a great line.
Yeah, she walks in. One's got her hands around like the nun's head. The other's got her hands in the purse. The other one's trying to escape through a window. It just looks like a flat out crime.
Yeah, it's
Why-
just such a great chaotic scene she walks into.
Other than the reveal that this nun's dead, why is this girl playing with her head that much?
She's weird.
Yeah, she's just the weird
She's
girl.
just weird. Yeah.
Everything about her, even like, I didn't touch on this earlier, but even from the very beginning, and this was hard for me, that opening narration where she's reading Erin's diary, her voice is so strange and like robotic. It has something to do with her accent. It's just her voice in general.
It's her
But it was-
delivery and stuff.
It's
yeah.
it's like off-putting.
She's her cousin, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they
she's the-
never
that's
address
her
why
cousin
she lives
and-
with her.
Yeah, the aunt and her live together with the mom.
okay.
Yeah,
their whole
because the
house now,
aunt,
it's like
the aunt comes into the house at some point too. Like early on when they were all having the breakfast.
Oh
or
yeah, I
whatever.
forgot about that character because we haven't brought her up yet.
Yeah, because there's nothing really of significance of her. She talks briefly there, and she's in this
Yeah.
next scene that comes up, but
Yeah,
that's
she's-
about it.
They show a bunch of the parents in the next scene, but like they're not really any real part of this episode, you know?
But yeah, well, that's what we're about to talk about, anyways. Because obviously, once Sister George comes in and sees all this stuff, this is going to result in them all going to her office, and all the parents are called in. So we have, like I said, Erin's whole family, like her parents, her aunt, her grandfather was holding the baby. And then we start meeting the other parents. We meet Michelle's mother, Claire's father, all show up. And it's like a whole scene.
I like that they like say it like they're just scamps though. Oh, what are you killing nuns now?
Yeah, everybody is
Yeah.
just like, using it at a level that it shouldn't be at. The sleeper line here too is the grandpa's line here, which I think is one of the funniest lines of the entire episode that just gets tossed off. when they realize how old the nun is that she passed away, he just goes, struck down in her prime, which I think is so fucking funny.
I didn't even catch that.
He says it, it's like just so understated.
Yeah, it was pretty under his breath
too.
Because the sister thinks that there's like foul play involved, and that's what this all comes down to. Credit actually to Erin in this moment, because she's the one who does say, like, sister, if I may ask, like, how old was sister? I can't remember the other,
Declan.
Her name, Sister Declan. She's like, oh, she was going to be 98, like, this Friday or something. And she's like, okay, well, do you think that, like, maybe that has something to do with why she died?
I love that nobody else, like, finds the logic in what she's saying, which makes, no sense at all.
No, but she walked in and they're like, it looks like they're assaulting her and robbing her.
Well,
That's
sure.
why.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean obviously, it does not look good.
It's not just out of the blue, like, oh, they must have killed them. There's some evidence.
But
right. I mean, also, I think Erin trying to escape out the window is the most guilty-looking one of them all, because it looks like she's trying to run from the crime,
But there's like this
James
whole...
is pissing on our grave.
I don't think the bucket was her grave.
Yeah, they were going to just throw her in the bucket after.
They say that later, too. They go, oh, what are you pissing on the nun's body now? And that's not what happened.
Well, there's probably a bit of telephone, right, by the time the story gets to them. But the nun does say that the hospital confirmed how she died. She just still thinks that there's more to it.
Yeah, which also leads me to, like, did they mention what day this is? Because it's clearly not, like, 2 hours later. The
That's a
hospital
good
wouldn't
point.
have done an autopsy that quickly.
Well, I think that's a little bit of TV magic, right? They're combining, because it's made to look like it's all the same school day, but I guess who knows?
Right, but it's also detention, and they're going to the gig, which I think
Right,
was
they
at,
were
like,
already
6, and
they're
said
already
gonna
after
miss
hours.
that, but it's still sunny out when they're there. I mean, again, like you said, you have to look the logic into that, but that's what we do.
Yeah. Well, it's always sunny in Londonderry.
Or regular dairy.
Depending on what side you're on.
What about non-fat dairy?
There's no such thing.
That's a good
Those
one.
calories are hidden.
Like that one.
I noticed this, like, when Claire's dad came in. It did happen early, because Michelle's done it a bunch, too, but, like, the blatant swearing, I know is different from country to country, and we make words a little bit more taboo here than other places do. But even then, like, I know, like, it's a little more casual to use that language, but would you still use that, like, in front of a nun?
I think so, because I think it's just so part of the language. Like, using cunt, for example, right? Like, in the UK and Ireland is so different than using it here, where it's just, like, a regular thing you say, right? Where I think that when it's everyday speak, I also think one of the things you're forgetting in this show, too, is that they're essentially all living in wartime. And I think that there's, like, a different vibe that goes through life when you're living through wartime. You know what I mean? Where, like, certain things are just thought of as so inconsequential because other things in life are so violent or dangerous, or they deal with death way more than other people. Like, I think that that's part of what they're trying to show here.
Yeah, it's just weird to me, like, just him walking in was like, how long does it take to defuse a fucking bomb? It's like, I don't know if that's how I would enter that room in that situation, like, but I guess it all depends on dialect and what words are okay to use where. But I was so raised, A
good example of one of the things I love so much about this show is the realistic way they portray people being like, yeah, this is dangerous, but also it's an inconvenience. Where they're like, oh, the fucking bridge, the kids won't get to school. Or the aunt, when we first meet her, is like, if I can't get to the bridge, I can't get to my tanning salon or whatever. This dude's like mad about it. He can't get here on time. He has to go the long way. Like, it's weird that these are life and death situations, but people deal with it so much that it becomes mundane. And I think that's like a really interesting perspective to have.
During what's going on, Erin's like really getting pissed because she realizes the weight of the amount of trouble they can get in. And she's saying, like, nothing about this makes sense. The woman was almost 98 years of age. She had a heart attack. Why is everybody going absolutely mental? And she's speaking like of logic, but everyone is taking this very different. And she's saying that, we didn't do anything. It's not fair. And Orla chimes in going, but that's the thing. Life isn't fair. And she's going into this long quote, which you pan over to see that she's reading from Erin's diary again. And I guess she had this perfectly timed out paragraph that went perfectly with what she said, because it was a perfect segue for her to start reading it.
She calls herself a child of the crossfire, which I thought was it's such a great thing to put, like, the most, like, flowery kid language, when you think you're, like, a great writer.
And Aaron obviously is very angry at that point and says that she's going to ram it so far up her arse. You know, that's where that episode ends.
That's it. An action-packed sitcom that we all got to watch.
It's a sit, but there's no calm.
I would call it a...
Hey, we've all done it. I think you guys just bad mooded this one for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't bad mood any shows. I want to like every show we
You
do.
don't good mood any shows.
That's a lie.
No,
He's
I don't.
sleepy.
I didn't. So we've talked about this. Yeah, I don't think my mood was poor going into this episode. I watched this. I was rested, ready to go, ready to record. So it wasn't like I'm watching this for the first time, upset that I have to watch it.
Ferg said it was the worst show we've ever done, and
No, I said that
he's
was
right.
California. I said that was California Dreams.
Which I
I
don't agree
still
with,
can't
but-
believe you think California Dreams is worse
That
than
was the
Homeboys in Outer
angriest
Space.
you've
I'm
ever
sorry,
made
that
me.
breaks my heart.
So
Yeah.
bad.
California Dreams was bad.
Look, I love California Dreams. I know it's bad, but it's not as bad as Homeboys in Outer Space.
Don't
That
bring
is fucking
homeboys out.
garbage.
Don't bring homeboys into this.
No,
At
by
least
no
it
means.
was a sitcom.
This
By no
was a
means would
sitcom,
I-
Gordo. I'm going to order you a squirrel pizza. You can calm down about your favorite TV show.
I don't think that this show is bad necessarily, but to lump it as a sitcom doesn't make. There just wasn't enough comedy for me. I
I
guess,
think
but
we'll have to go and check, but metrically speaking, the worst show we've ever done viewership-wise is Bless This House. So Jay holds the record for the worst show we've done metrically speaking.
Hold on.
Speaking of that,
No, hold on. Before you do that, I want to defend Bless This House, Gordo, and then I'll let you go.
It has nothing to do with the show itself. I enjoyed that show.
No, I think that was 5
That's
for
what I'm gonna
5
say. If we're gonna
greenlight.
if we're gonna go by download count, and we won't get into specific numbers, but yeah, that one is slightly below another episode. But that is because of people recognition factor. People. So for those of you listening right now, go back and listen to Bless This House.
Bless This House was great.
No,
Yeah,
you
I
can't
see that.
juice the numbers now, Jay.
No, well, it's a show. Listen, enough
There
time
was
has
no
passed.
way to
but
share that.
There was nowhere to share that. I mean, I love
that was a
Andrew Dice
show
Clay. I thought
that
that show
when
was
you go-
great, but where do you do that? You know?
when we talk worst show of all time, we're saying objectively, like, is it a bad television show? Like, Bless This House is a show that all 5 of us passed. So it's a
Sure.
very different situation.
I would say objectively bad that we've covered would be Country Comfort.
California Dreams.
Country Comfort.
No, California Dreams I don't think is objectively bad.
I don't think it's
there's
nearly as
something
bad
people
as you
can
say
take
it
from
is.
Not as bad as Country Comfort.
Country Comfort, I think, is like, there's no redeeming quality at all.
Country Comfort didn't have a random music video in the middle of it.
It had like 3 random,
They
just
all
the
they
whole
all
band
started
plays.
playing
That's
during a
Mama's
tornado.
guitar.
Yeah, they just
Yeah, they played the Everly Brothers.
they
It
unearthed
still
a drum
pertained to
set.
what was going on. It wasn't just a random music video because they didn't have enough time.
They were trying to with that show. They were trying to do something else with it. Like that was all by design to try to get that. They were trying to do like a Monkeys thing with that group. It just didn't work.
But Sly,
But
Oh, wait,
speaking
oh,
of that,
Gordo, and I had a little side bet going here. That so I love this show. No, no obvious statements there. Gordo, not a huge fan of this show, although it seems like he came around a little bit on it. But we did say, I think this is a very well-loved show, and not everyone seems to agree with me. So I have put it up there that if this show does worse numbers in the first week than Gordo's pick that I couldn't stand, which was Homeboys from Outer Space, I will concede my next pick to Gordo for a
No,
show
don't do that
he
to
will
us.
purposely
You're
only pick something that I would absolutely fucking hate.
And what's the
that's
what?
where we're at.
Do you get the flip side if you beat him?
Oh,
should.
I didn't think of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
what happens
he
if
should.
I
actually,
win?
you know
No,
what?
either
You know
way,
what?
we all lose.
Yep.
I know, it's-
Actually, you know what?
Yeah, nobody,
I
the
was
royal
gonna say-
we here loses, but Gordo and I get some fun out of it.
Yeah, you know what, Joe? If it does worse than Homeboys from Outer Space, I will concede my next pick. I didn't agree to that just until now, but I think that's fair.
Okay, all right. So we have a bet. So
Hold on,
guys,
Gordo, give me your screen. Hand on the screen.
there's no way to insinuate to those listening because if you're already listening, you've already contributed to Joe's part of the bet. So I guess we'll find out. We'll keep you guys updated.
Gordo,
When
if
we
you
know
give me
more
some
about
money,
it.
I won't share it, so he doesn't get any.
Why do I have a feeling that I'm going to end up like 6 weeks from now watching some show that's just nothing but like people hitting fart noise buttons for 45 minutes? I'm just going to end up jumping out my window.
You can go to find some Hungarian sitcom called Farty McPoop. Farty McPoop.
The Fart Family. It's like, oh, Gordo, why'd you do this to us?
A Hungarian sitcom with Irish undertones for some reason.
Farty McPoop, the Hungarian Irish sitcom.
That being said, I think it's time to wrap this episode up.
I think so.
So, guys, let's get into the green light or cancel. I'm going to get the obvious vote out of the way first. So, Joe, you're starting off.
Yeah, again, I have pretty much tipped my hat the entire time. I love this show. I think it's a sitcom. I think that it's a really interesting conceit to try to not only do, comedy and drama together, but in a time and in a place where, it's not talked about a lot in the rest of the world, and then have it be a pretty big show where people maybe learn a little more, right? And again, I think that time's really interesting. I think that area is really interesting culturally and historically. I think there was only one bad thing in this entire episode, which is a sitcom, and that is that there is so much great Irish music in the world, and they forced me to have to listen to the fucking Dropkick Murphys, who I just can't stand. That's the one complaint I have for this episode. This is a huge green light for me. And the new season of this show, which we've been waiting for, Kelsey and I at least, have been waiting for forever, because it's been out for months and months in Ireland. It's finally coming to Netflix in October. So I'm very excited to finish out the last season and final season of the show. Green light for Joe.
Ferg.
All right, my earlier rage has subsided, so you get off a little easy, Joe. This is cancel for me. It's not a bad show. It's just not funny. I don't consider this a sitcom, but I mean, that's all subjective. I just don't think it's funny. Had a couple parts. I won't be continuing it, and that's usually my main thing. I just wasn't into it. Cancel for me.
Gordo.
This is a cancel. I walked into this show. I wouldn't have hated it so much if you didn't set it up as a sitcom. If you had said, hey, watch this dramedy about the Troubles, I would maybe be a little bit more receptive to it than I am thinking going into classic sitcom. Cause that's what I think of, or even the UK and that general area sitcom. It's not set up like that at all. Which is where I was where's the funny? I did have a problem with the Brogue, but again, that's more of a me problem. And I didn't know it was available on other platforms where I could watch it with subtitles, because I don't go to them when I watch it because I'm afraid that we don't get the correct episode. It's a cancel from me. That's pretty much all I got to say. I didn't bad mood it. I didn't know what to expect going into it, so it just wasn't good. It wasn't for me. The funny parts weren't all that funny. Cancel.
Nick.
Yeah, I'll keep this short and sweet because I sound like Kermit. So it's a green light for me. I enjoyed it. I can see where maybe you guys hesitated just because of, certain things. But I think at the end of the day, it was really entertaining. Big cast. They did a good job of introing the characters, and I liked the story, and I was actually excited to see another episode. I'm definitely going to keep watching this. So green light for me.
All right, so I'm in a tiebreaker situation. So I'll say this. I don't think this is a bad show. I think they do a lot of stuff well. I think it was filmed well. I think a lot of the dialogue's good. Where I struggle with this is, again, do I see this as a sitcom? To me, not so much. And I think a lot of it goes to it's just do you want to watch it again and continue on? That's what we always really base our votes on for the most part. Sometimes we have to try to get into the scope of who it's aimed for. I don't have a big desire to continue to watch this. You really have to point me in the direction of a scene or something look at what happens with the show. It gets better. And I didn't get enough from this to be locked in. So for me, it has to be a cancel. But again, it's a good show. It's just not for me. And I don't think I'm maybe the person that it's aimed for. And I'll say this, not, Nick, you think it's coming in with a bad mood. I think it was almost the opposite. I think Joe hyped this show up and said how big it was and what a big fan base it has. So maybe my expectations were a lot different, but I don't know what I thought this show was going to be, but it just wasn't that type of show. And I thought it was going to be a little more, I don't want to say goofy, but I thought there'd be more apparent humor throughout it, and there wasn't a lot of it. That whole last scene with the nun I thought was very funny. With the dead nun and all that chaos that happened. I did enjoy it, but I just didn't think there was enough in the episode for me to want to continue on. So with that being said, sorry to Derry Girls, you do not pass. Only 2 out of the 5 are greenlighting it, so you do not live on to see another day. So that being said, that's all the time we have for this week. Tune in again next week. We're going to have another new episode for you. Go to S1E1Pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to our social media, everywhere you can listen to us. Again, S1E1Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Give us follows, hit us up there. We are seeing a big influx of people hitting us up with suggestions. Trust us when we say we are listening to them. We discuss them. Like every time someone messages me, we'll talk about it. So none of that is being unnoticed. So continue on. We really do enjoy that. If you listen on Apple, go ahead and give us a review, 5-star hopefully, and leave a little positive words to go along with it. Those help us a lot. So thank you for that if you've already done that. But that's it. That's all the time we have for this week. We'll catch you again next week, guys. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
I think we got the best Dennis Wee shop.
I think you picked the wrong genre.